Chapter 1339. Now Chen Zhao understood. He'd understood it in his sleep. This was Chen Zhao's first time comprehending something so passively. No wonder Old Turtle said he didn't need to do anything. He'd understand when the time was right. So that was it. What was nimble movement? Actually, it meant that his own mana source and the pocket world's mana source had reached an equilibrium. When they were at the same level, the pocket world's mana source would flow into Chen Zhao's body, while the mana source in Chen Zhao's body would be converted into the pocket world's mana source. The two swapped. It wasn't permanent, but constantly changing. His body's mana source and the small world's mana source were constantly blending together. When Chen Zhao had first entered Clear Sky and created the small world's mana source had become his greatest support. The small world's mana source was far greater than Chen Zhao's own. However, as he continued cultivating, his body's mana source kept growing. But the small world's mana source wouldn't change. Because the small world was only so big, and wouldn't grow any bigger, the mana source wouldn't change either. But after nimble movement, there was a change because the two mana sources had swapped. Now the small world's mana source had become Chen Zhao's. Through his own cultivation, he could expand the mana source in his body. Then after another exchange, he could achieve the effect of expanding the small world. The period of this exchange was 81 days. Every 81 days, there would be an exchange. Actually, Chen Zhao wasn't really asleep. His body had entered a dormant state. This was his body's instinctive reaction. In other words, from now on, there would be an obvious increase in strength every 81 days. Of course, how much would depend on how hard Chen Zhao cultivated. If Chen Zhao didn't cultivate during the 81 days, there wouldn't be any growth during the swap. Chen Zhao had slept for 81 days. In fact, his consciousness had been very clear during these 81 days. He couldn't see, but he could still feel the changes in his body. On the 81st day, Chen Zhao opened his eyes. You're awake. How do you feel? Full of energy. Nothing else. Chen Zhao looked at his hands and feet. In terms of strength, there wasn't much improvement. The first agility transformation was because the source of mana within his body had reached a balance with the source of heaven and earth's source of mana. In other words, the source of mana within his body was higher than the source of heaven and earth's source of mana. Just like a seesaw, the mana pool in the body exceeded the mana pool of the small world by a little bit, and the mana pool began to swap places. Chen Zhao felt his pocket world. It was indeed bigger. Now it covered an area of around 31 meters. Do you want to continue training your physical strength? Old Turtle asked. No, I have something to do tonight. I'll go out first. Although more than 100 days had passed in the river map, less than 3 hours had passed in the outside world. Chen Zhao still remembered the welcome party for Osalisa's return. Don't get the impression that Osalisa has done nothing for the supernatural community. First of all, lurking around Leon carried a huge risk. Then there was the information she had given to the supernatural organization. Osalisa's contributions were no less than anyone else's in the association. Now that she was officially a member of the association, everyone in the association had to be present. After all, he couldn't disappoint his meritorious subjects. Chen Zhao actually liked the current state and scale of the association. Because it wasn't big, there weren't any power struggles. Everyone could coexist peacefully. But if there were more people, there would be more benefits too. Would they still be able to guarantee the purity of each member? Chen Zhao couldn't guarantee it. No one could guarantee it. Fei Lai, there's a party at the headquarters tonight. Do you want to go? Sure. Fei Lai didn't reject. Fei Lai didn't dislike parties. She just didn't like the gatherings of the upper class, just like Chen Zhao. For example, they'd been to the parties that Zola, Steven, and Rasful had hosted in the past. But they had to keep a straight face every time. Everyone had to fake a smile to deal with each other. Then, they would say random things and eat and drink carefully, so that they wouldn't embarrass the host. This was why Chen Zhao and Fei Lai hated the gatherings of the upper class. Chen Zhao and Fei Lai didn't have this problem when they hosted their own parties. There weren't any upper-class people in the headquarters, so the atmosphere was very casual. They could play as much as they wanted. No one would embarrass themselves. Also, Feilai knew the members of the association. Little Jerlin, on the other hand, loved parties the most. Her friend Evans was also in the association. The weather isn't good today. I hope it won't rain. Feilai sat in the passenger seat and looked at the gloomy sky. If it rained in the middle of the party, it would definitely be a huge disappointment. It's okay, Chen Zhao said. Chen Zhao couldn't control the weather in the entire LA area, but he could control the weather in the headquarters. Even if it rained outside, the headquarters would be calm. When they arrived, the people were all busy. They arranged all sorts of decorations and food. A dozen evil spirits floated back and forth, placing plates of food on the table. Little Jerlin had already started playing with Evans. The two children ran around, one chasing the other. Chen Zhao and Feilai entered the living room and saw Osalisa chatting with West. Osalisa, welcome back. President. Osalisa immediately stood up. This is Feilai. It should be your first time meeting. Hello, Feilai. Hello, you're Osalisa, right? When Feilai and Osalisa started talking about women, Chen Zhao and West automatically moved away. President, do you know about the terrorist attack this morning? Huh? What happened? West told Chen Zhao what had happened today. Mansari's in big trouble now. Such a big thing happened right after he took office. President, should we kick him when he's down? Chen Zhao thought for a moment and told her what had happened to him. West's expression turned strange. That kidney cutter had actually kidnapped Chen Zhao. At the same time, West was deep in thought. After more than 10 seconds, West said, if that's the case, Mansari's trouble should be smaller. After all, he has just been appointed. Although he paid a heavy price to track down the midnight kidney cutter in 2 days, this can be considered his achievement. Chapter 1340. Do you think it'll be believable if Mansari shows up to me first? Chen Zhao asked. It's hard to guess, but the supernatural organization and the anti-terrorism department won't have any conflicts in the short term, West said. We might have conflicts, but there's no conflict of interest. Mansari doesn't have to turn against us. But in the long term, once Mansari gathers all the power in the anti-terrorism department, he definitely won't be able to tolerate a disobedient subordinate department. Most importantly, this subordinate department needs $20 million a year. It's no longer a subordinate department. It's like his grandfather. Chen Zhao chuckled. West's words were indeed funny, but they also made sense. If this happened in the supernatural organization, Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to tolerate it either. Mansari would be the same. He'd saved Mansari. Maybe he'd said that out of gratitude. But would he really tolerate an uncontrollable subordinate department? But there was no better way now. Kill Mansari. Another stranger would be even more troublesome. Also, using assassination to seek benefits was a big taboo in any industry or place. For example, in Latin American countries, criminal groups even dared to assassinate high-ranking government officials for their own benefits. They even put bounties on police officers. Such a chaotic political environment was unimaginable in other places. Chen Zhao might be strong enough now, but he couldn't ignore any rules. In a social environment like America, relying on assassination to seek benefits could very well land him in an irreversible situation. After all, the supernatural organization was an official department, not some random organization. Chen Zhao believed in power, but he wouldn't blindly use it to decide everything. If one day, the battle between Chen Zhao and Mansari ended with Chen Zhao's defeat, Chen Zhao would accept his defeat. He wouldn't just go and kill Mansari. Enemies on the battlefield and enemies in politics were two different things. Of course, up until now, Chen Zhao and the supernatural organization only had good cards in their hands. They still had the advantage for now. Chen Zhao and Wes were just taking precautions. Chen Zhao and Wes wouldn't think that they'd win for sure. Since they had the advantage, they could make more proactive arrangements. A few people were competing by the lake. They were having a lot of fun. Jalanash was using an elemental whirlwind to create a waterspout, while Mord was dropping a few seeds into the water. A dozen aquatic plants with mouths appeared in the water. This kind of battle was a common occurrence in the association, other than the fact that no one had ever challenged them before. The other members would often spar with their companions. Vaser, it's good that you're back. Do you know how worried I was when you were missing for 2 days? Beside Chloe Base, her husband Oni knelt on one knee and grabbed her hand, his face full of joy. Kefwi Base sat on the chair like a queen, while Oni looked more like her servant. Oni used to be an executive in her company. In the eyes of others, Oni was young and promising. He was humorous and quite popular in the company. But in Kefwi Base's eyes, Oni wasn't as beautiful as others thought. The one who was most disappointed that he was able to come back alive was probably Oni. If he did not return, Oni would be able to rightfully inherit his wealth. I want to be alone, Kefwi Base said calmly. They had signed a prenuptial agreement. Even if Oni divorced her, he would only get a few $1,000,000 as a breakup fee. The breakup fee wasn't only paid by the man. In fact, American law would first determine if there was a prenuptial agreement. If there was one, it would be judged according to it. If there wasn't, both parties would split the assets equally. Of course, if one party made a mistake, such as cheating, it would also affect the distribution of assets. And in America, prenuptial agreements were very common. Especially the rich in America. Almost every rich person who got married would sign a prenuptial agreement with their partner. It was easy to know a person's nature. Just marry him. After marriage, Oni's nature was completely exposed. He no longer had the kind of beauty and romance before marriage. Oni's greed and ambition were also exposed step by step. In the eyes of outsiders, the blissful couple was already separated on the outside. The reason why Kefwi Base hadn't divorced Oni yet was only for the benefit of the company. Kefwi Base knew many of Oni's secrets. For example, he used his position to embezzle the company's assets. He transferred the company's liquid funds to an overseas account, as well as his secret lovers. He thought he hid it well. In fact, a few of them were sent by Kefwi Base. Kefwi Base was currently investigating Oni's overseas account. Once the investigation was clear, it would be Oni's end. Kefwi Base wouldn't give Oni a single cent, and would send him to jail. Then I won't disturb you anymore. Have a good rest, Oni said as he stood up. The moment he turned around, Oni's face instantly darkened. During the 2 days when Kefwi Base disappeared, Oni was even more excited than a drug. Especially when he found out from the police that Kefwi Base might have been kidnapped by a midnight kidney cutter. Oni was so excited that he almost suffocated. But Kefwi Base came back, and she came back in one piece. This made Oni very disappointed. He had never wished for his wife to die as much as he did at this moment. Why did she come back? Why did she come back alive? That damned midnight kidney cutter. That trash. Just like how Kefwi Base knew Oni's thoughts, Oni also knew Kefwi Base's thoughts. He was afraid that he would lose everything. This vicious woman, she wouldn't let him off so easily. He didn't dare to use the company's money anymore, because this poisonous snake had already set its eyes on him. When she found out what he had done, what awaited him would definitely be worse than death. He definitely wouldn't let this woman have her way. The money belonged to him, and all her assets should also belong to him. He had worked so hard for so many years, and all his efforts were definitely not to prepare for jail. Right. Let her die. As long as she died, then all her assets would belong to him. At this moment, Oni finally made up his mind. He had to let this woman die. But this kind of thing had to be done cleanly and beautifully, and he couldn't be suspected. When Oni left the villa, he took out his phone and made a call. Chapter 1341. Hey Oni, I heard you're looking for me? A lazy voice came from the other side of the phone. Oni's heart skipped a beat as he struggled to breathe. What Oni was most afraid of wasn't his wife, Kev Ibas, but this man named Furtis. Hi. Fernandez, how are you? I hope you didn't call me just to catch up. I hate catching up, especially with trash I hate. Fernandez spoke without holding back, his tone filled with disdain for Oni. I want to ask you a favor. What is it? Do you know my wife, Kefwi Base? Of course. She's a beautiful and rich woman, the CEO of the largest cinema chain in North America. I want her money. I can't help you with that. Other than the shareholders of the company, only the banks can get their hands on her money. As long as she's dead, the money will be mine, Oni said. Hihi, how much do you want? $1 million. Haha, are you trying to scare me off? Idiot, I want more. I want $100 million. That's impossible, you're robbing me. Hee. If you don't agree, I'll send our conversation to your wife, Fernandez said. How can you? I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. What do you think? I agree. When can she die? No one can escape from me if I want to kill them. Don't you worry, Felix said. I want it done as soon as possible. She's investigating me right now. If you don't do it soon, you won't get a single cent. Right, where's your wife now? Los Angeles. Los Angeles? Fernandez suddenly fell into silence. Can you take her somewhere else? Like San Francisco or some other city? Why? I don't like going to Los Angeles, Fernandez said. She's very against me right now. I can't take her away from Los Angeles, Oni said. I'm not going to Los Angeles, Fernandez said. You don't need to stay here, just kill her, Oni said. You want more money? Add another $100 million. Furtis, you've gone too far. I said I hate Los Angeles. I don't like going there. This is not a reason at all. I'm the reason. If you bring her to another city, you won't have to pay more. But if she's in Los Angeles, you'll have to pay more, Fernandez insisted. Oni cursed in his heart, this vampire. However, this phone call had already put him in a difficult position. All right, you'd better hurry. Oni gritted his teeth and accepted the price. As long as he could get that woman's assets, it would be worth it even if he had to pay $200 million. Bath Group was the largest cinema chain in North America, and even the world. It had more than 1,100 cinema chains in North America, and more than 12,000 movie screens. Its market value was more than $30 billion. Kafou Ibis inherited all the shares of the Ibis Group from her father, 45% of the shares. Last year, the total box office in North America was $12 billion, but the revenue of the Bath Group's cinemas reached $10 billion. Of course, the box office revenue only accounted for 30% of the total revenue. The rest came from beverages, popcorn, and peripherals. Bath Group's net profit was $2 billion. In other words, Kafou Ibis earned $540 million last year. As long as he could get all of Kafou Ibis' assets, he wouldn't even have to pay half a year's worth of income to obtain the wealth he dreamed of. It was as if Oni could already see the boundless wealth waving at him. He no longer needed to wag his tail and beg in front of Kafou Ibis like a dog anymore. He no longer needed to tremble in fear when looking for a woman. Kafou Ibis shopped as usual, as if the kidnapping last time didn't affect her at all. Of course, to ensure her own safety, Kafou Ibis hired a team of 20 bodyguards this time. The famous Blackwater security company provided assistance for her. These 20 people were all experienced veterans or mercenaries. They also knew how to distance themselves when the employer needed them, without affecting the employer's leisure time. Behind Kafou Ibis were 2 pitiful mercenaries who were specially tasked to carry her shopping bags. Kafou Ibis suddenly stopped in her tracks, pulled down her sunglasses, and looked forward. Then Kafou Ibis strode forward. Hello, Mr. Mansari. Mansari and Limu were drinking coffee on the side of the road. They were on a mission. However, Mansari didn't expect to meet Kafou Ibis here. You are Miss Kefli. Mansari recognized this woman as the one she had saved from Sook a few days ago. Can you call me Ibis? Kafou Ibis looked at Limu. Is this your girlfriend? No, I'm Mr. Mansari's subordinate. Limu said. Mr. Mansari, thank you for saving me. Do you have time? I want to treat you to a meal. Sorry, I'm afraid I can't. Mansari shook his head. Which department do you work in? I've checked all the files in Los Angeles, but I couldn't find you. Kafou Ibis asked. That's none of your business, Mansari said indifferently. At this moment, Mansari's earpiece reported to him. Sir, that person is coming towards you and Lee. Limu nodded to Mansari. Mansari glanced at Kafou Ibis. You better leave now. A person was walking towards them from the opposite side of the road. He seemed to be in a hurry, and his eyes were looking everywhere. They were currently trying to catch a fugitive. Normally, the anti-terrorism security department wouldn't participate in a fugitive mission. However, this fugitive was more dangerous. He was a bomber. He had caused many explosions and caused many casualties. The Anti-Terrorism Security Department would screen criminals who would cause social unrest. These criminals were their daily targets. Mansari already saw the fugitive, but he deliberately looked away. Lee, don't look at that person with your eyes. Pretend nothing happened. Mansari instructed in a low voice. Li Mu was still a newbie and didn't understand many details. Chapter 1342. Mansari ignored Kefwi Base and walked towards the fugitive with Li Mu. The two of them chatted like they were passers-by. The moment he reached the fugitive, Mansari moved. Like a tiger, he grabbed the fugitive's neck with one hand and his wrist with the other. Then he lifted him up and slammed him onto the ground. Don't move. Li Mu also pulled out his gun and pointed at the fugitive. Search him. Mansari pressed the fugitive down and yelled at Li Mu. Li Mu immediately searched the fugitive. Boss, look. The fugitive had a bomb on him. Luckily, Mansari reacted quickly and subdued him. Otherwise, if the fugitive detonated the bomb here, it could cause casualties. Don't get close. Mansari saw Kefwi Base approaching and immediately yelled, seal off the area and evacuate the surrounding people. Even though the fugitive was subdued, the danger wasn't over. If they couldn't remove the bomb on him, the danger would always be there. The fugitive was extremely dangerous. His homemade bomb was powerful. At this time, the other team members also came. After some effort, they finally saw that the bomb was over. Mansari finally sighed in relief. He wasn't subduing an ordinary criminal, but a bomb that could explode at any time. If the bomb exploded, he wouldn't be able to survive no matter how good he was. Kefwi Base didn't leave and waited for Mansari not far away. Mansari saw that Kefwi Base was still there, so he walked up. Miss Kefwi, is there anything else? Do you have time? I want to treat you to a meal. Sorry, I don't have time. Can you give me a way to contact you? Kefwi Base looked at Mansari. Sorry, no. Then what department are you from? I can't tell you either. Mansari still coldly refused. If you don't tell me, I'll keep following you, Kefwi Base said. Mansari ignored Kefwi Base and left after getting in the car with Li Mu. Boss, that woman is still following us. Li Mu had received some professional courses. Although he was still a student, he still had basic anti-tracking methods. Lose them. But after trying for a long time, Li Mu still couldn't lose them. After all, the one driving was Kefwi Base's bodyguard, a professional mercenary, a few levels stronger than Li Mu. With Li Mu's level, he was barely qualified to be their student. Stop the car on the side of the road, Mansari said. Mansari got out of the car. Kefwi Base also got out and came to Mansari. Mr. Mansari, we meet again. What exactly do you want? I just want to get to know you. Do you know I have the right to arrest you? Mansari said. I'm rich, Kefwi Base said. Kefwi Base was telling Mansari that she could do whatever she wanted. Mansari had nothing to say, because he knew that this was the rule of this society. Even if he was a semi-secret organization, he still had to make concessions in front of rich people. All right, I'm from the Counterterrorism Department. Is that enough? Mansari said. Counterterrorism Security Department? Kefwi Base had never heard of the department, but from the name, she knew it was related to counterterrorism. Do you accept business? Kefwi Base asked. No, Mansari said, frowning. I can sponsor you $50 million in one go, Kefwi Base said. Mansari was about to turn and leave when he heard the $50 million sponsorship. He couldn't help but stop. Sometimes government departments also had to bow to money. Nothing in this world was priceless. Even the Counterterrorism Security Department had a price. Mansari was clearing the influence left by the previous minister. For example, the finance department wasn't under his control yet. But if he could get external funding, it would be crucial for him to quickly control the Counterterrorism Security Department. We're not an assassin department. We won't kill people to keep them quiet. I just want to borrow the intelligence department to help me investigate something, Kefwi Base said. Investigate what? How about we find a place to sit? Lee, go back to the headquarters first. This restaurant is expensive, right? Mansari asked. The minimum cost is $3,000, Kefwi Base said. Just then the waiter walked over. Miss Kefwi, we have nameless wine today. Do you want it? Is there nameless wine today? I'll have one for my table. Okay, please wait a moment. The waiter left respectfully. Mansari picked up the menu and saw the nameless wine, priced at 88888. Mansari felt dizzy. I really don't understand why people are so rich. $88,888 for a bottle of wine. I don't believe there's any wine in the world that I can enjoy for $88,888. In the entire L.A. Only this restaurant has a stable supply of nameless wine. Others might not be able to drink it even if they're willing to spend money. When the nameless wine was served, Mansari saw that there was no label on the bottle. There was only a number. What wine is this? Why doesn't it have a label? That's why it's called nameless wine. Kefwi Base waved her finger. The waiter standing beside them poured the wine for them. Please, Mr. Mansari. Mansari picked up the glass. Instantly, the aroma rushed into his nose. Good wine. Even without drinking it, Mansari already knew that it was really good wine. It was completely different from what he had drunk in the past. The moment the wine entered his mouth, the moist aroma filled his mouth and didn't dissipate for a long time. When it entered his stomach, he felt a little warm, but he didn't feel hot. Mansari put down the glass reluctantly. How about it? Do you think it's worth $88,888 now? Maybe, but I still won't spend $88,888 on a bottle of wine. Never. Kefwi Base waved at the waiter, gesturing for him to leave. After the waiter left, Kefwi Base said, Mr. Mansari, I hope you can help me investigate my husband. Investigate your husband? Extramarital affair. I basically have all the evidence of his extramarital affair, Kefwi Base said. Kefwi Base said, during the 3 years we were married, he took advantage of his position to embezzle hundreds of millions of dollars from the company and transferred them to his overseas account. I need you to help me investigate his overseas account and the flow of the money. Help me recover the money. It's not easy to investigate an overseas account, Mansari said. Chapter 1343. As soon as Kofi Base returned home, she received a call from Mansari. Ms. Kofi. Mr. Mansari, what's up? When was the last time you had sex with your husband? Does this have anything to do with what I asked you to investigate? No, Mansari said. But I found something that I think you should pay attention to. What did you find? In the hospital records, I found that your husband, Oni, has been treated for STDs 3 times in the past 6 months. That's STDs? Kofi Base asked in shock. Yes, that's right. If you feel anything strange, you should go to the hospital for a checkup. With that, Mansari hung up. However, Kofi Base's face was green. She could barely vent the anger in her chest. Kofi Base really wanted to kill that asshole. Go to the hospital? Kofi Base was about to go to the hospital when she suddenly stopped. Since Oni's records could be found, she would also be found if she went to the hospital. Once this was exposed, it would have a huge negative impact on her image, and even her control of Base Corporation. After thinking about it, Kofi Base decided not to go to the hospital. The disease wouldn't be fatal anyway. Plus, she wasn't sure if she was infected. Kofi Base thought about it. She wanted to find her personal doctor. However, she suddenly remembered that Oni had recommended her personal doctor. No, she couldn't find a personal doctor. Hey Chun, there's a client who's in a hurry. Do you have time now? Chun Zhao looked at the time. It was already midnight. What's the price? Chun Zhao asked. $500,000. Absolute confidentiality. Sure. Chun Zhao nodded. Someone who could pay this price was definitely rich. Chun Zhao thought about it and brought some medicine. When rich people sought him out, they would usually treat some shady and unclean illnesses. It wasn't Chun Zhao's first time seeing such a patient. In order not to wake Fei Lai up, Chun Zhao left the house quietly. After half an hour's drive, Chun Zhao looked at the luxurious manor before him. Honk! Chun Zhao pressed the horn. Someone came out. What are you doing? I received a message. Someone here is sick and needs treatment. The guard took out his walkie-talkie and asked, after which he let Chun Zhao in. Then a servant brought Chun Zhao into the manor. Wait here for a moment, I'll call the mistress down. After waiting in the living room for a few minutes, Chen Zhao heard footsteps coming from upstairs. When he turned his head, he saw a brown-haired woman in pajamas walking down the stairs. The pajamas were soft and smooth, and he could vaguely see her slender legs. When Kefuibus saw Chen Zhao, she was stunned. "It's you." Chen Zhao studied Kefuibus carefully. "You are? Don't you remember?" "Sorry, I really don't remember. Have we met before?" Chen Zhao asked. He had no impression of Kefuibus. "You were the one who opened the door of the truck that day," Kefuibus said. She thought that Chen Zhao was a member of the anti-terrorist security department. "Big truck. Oh, you mean that day in the desert?" Chen Zhao realized that it was a woman. When he opened the door of the truck, a woman seemed to be awake. However, Chen Zhao didn't specifically remember what she looked like. You're an illegal doctor?" "Yes," Chen Zhao said indifferently. "Are you the one who needs treatment? The aftereffects of that incident? Why were you there that day?" Kefuibus asked. "I'm also one of the victims," Chen Zhao said. "There was nothing wrong with that." "Oh, you were also kidnapped by a midnight kidney cutter?" "Yes." Chen Zhao nodded. "Are you feeling unwell?" "Follow me," Kefuibus said. Kefuibus brought Chen Zhao to the bedroom and locked the door from the inside. "I'm not sure if I have an STD," Kefuibus said. "I need you to check for me." After all, it wasn't something to be proud of, so Kefuibus was still a bit embarrassed. "Take off your pants and everything on your lower body," Chen Zhao said. Kefuibus hesitated and pulled open her pajamas. Chen Zhao took out the speculum and said to Kefuibus, "Lie on the bed. This thing will go in. Be prepared." Kefuibus took a deep breath and nodded. "You can do it." Chen Zhao put on the mask and put the speculum in. He indeed found the cause. Then he said, "Turn your back here. I need to check your hepatic portal." "That thing will go in." Kefuibus was a bit scared. "No, just check the local area." "Okay," Chen Zhao said. "Genital herpes. It's not serious. I'll prescribe some medicine for you. But you need to pay attention to your personal hygiene and safety during sex. Also, genital herpes will recur, so you need to pay attention to your partners too. It's best if you can confirm which partner got it. Do you have physiological salts at home?" "Yes." Use normal saline to wash the pubic area and behind every day. After that, wipe it dry and keep the lower body dry. This is acinalivir. Take it 5 times a day. Also, this is a painkiller. Normally, you don't need it. But if it hurts, you have to take it. "Okay, thank you." Knock, knock, knock. Just then, there was a hurried knock on the door. Chen Zhao turned around and glanced at Kefuibus. Kefuibus's expression was a bit unhappy. She clearly knew who it was. "Can you open the door for me?" Chen Zhao walked up and opened the door. Then he saw an angry man rush into the room. Oni saw Kefuibus covered in a blanket and the underwear on the ground. He instantly felt an unknown anger rush to his head. "Ibus, who is he? I'm not feeling well. He's the doctor who's here to treat me." "Doctor?" Oni clearly didn't believe him. "We have a private doctor. Why do you need a stranger to treat you? Tell me honestly, who is he?" Even though Oni was a playboy outside, he didn't like it when people cheated on him. "I don't need to explain anything to you, Mr. Chen. Thank you for your treatment. I'm much better now. My entire body feels very comfortable. Thank you." Kefuibus's tone was purposely teasing. "I look forward to your next treatment." Chapter 1344. Chen Zhao grabbed Oni's fist like he was holding a balloon with one hand. Oni's face reddened. He wanted to pull his fist back, but it wasn't that easy since Chen Zhao was holding it. Chen Zhao turned to look at Kefuibus. She didn't look nervous or panicked at all after being caught in bed. Instead, she had a cold smile on her face. It seemed that the couple didn't have a good relationship. No, it could even be said to be bad. They were about to fall out with each other. Chen Zhao pushed Oni away with a casual wave. Useless. When Kefuibus saw Oni fall to the ground, she wasn't worried at all. Instead, her gaze was filled with glee as she spat softly. Oni's face was bright red. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened and picked up his toolbox. "Mr. Chen, your skills are very good. I'm very satisfied. This is your payment." Kefuibus handed a check to Chen Zhao. "Thank you. Can you give me your contact number?" I'll call you when I need it. For a man, there was nothing more humiliating than this. Hearing Kefwi Base praise her lover's skills right in front of him, and even ask for his contact number, Oni was even more furious. He wanted to kill this bastard couple. After Chen Zhao left, Kefwi Base glanced at Oni with cold disdain. I'm going to rest. Get out. I'm your husband, Oni roared. I haven't been feeling well recently. I don't like people disturbing my rest. Get out. Kefwi Base didn't want to pretend with Oni anymore. Oni's behavior disgusted her. She couldn't tolerate this man anymore. Oni turned to leave. He was also furious. He couldn't wait for this woman to die. He could also feel that Kefwi Base was planning to fall out with him. This made his sense of danger even stronger. If he kept delaying, he would lose everything. Mr. Fernandez, when are you coming to LA? What's the rush? I need to prepare. Fernandez replied impatiently. I need you to act quickly. I can't stand that bitch anymore. I want her dead. I want her dead. I want her dead right now. Got it. Don't yell over the phone. I can hear you, Fernandez said slowly. What an impatient guy, Fides said in an annoyed tone. Boss, are we really going to LA? The supernatural organization is not to be trifled with. The Hermit Order was a supernatural organization in North America. Their headquarters were located in Seattle and could be considered a large organization. Fernandez had personally led a team to participate in the North American Psychic Contest. They also witnessed the North American Illuminati being fixed by the supernatural organization. It's worth the risk for a $200 million deal. Plus, as long as we're careful, the supernatural organization won't know we're here. Fernandez sounded casual, but he didn't dare to be careless. That was the supernatural organization. If there was even the slightest bit of carelessness, and the supernatural organization found out that the Hermit Order was messing around in their territory, it could very well lead to an even greater conflict. Fernandez wasn't confident that he could escape unscathed from the supernatural organization's attack. There were quite a number of people in the Hermit Order, but most of them weren't very strong. Fides thought for a while and said, Go get me some bodies. Boss, it's too risky to use that spell. It's fine if we don't use it in LA, Fernandez said. Fernandez said, Let Oni lure his wife to the suburbs and set up a trap. Cut off their signal, and the supernatural organization won't know what we're doing. Clean up the scene afterward, and no one will know we were here. After a pause, Fernandez said, Don't do it in Seattle. Do it in a city further away. That way, even if it's exposed, the Hermit Order won't be suspected. According to the insider information received by this station, 95 corpses have been lost in Kansas City's Santa Maria Hospital. 30 corpses have been lost in Amore Hospital, and the corpses have been lost in Theodore Hospital. Chen Zhao and Fei Lai watched the news on TV. Fei Lai said, Who are these people who stole the bodies? Chen, aren't you going to do something? Chen Zhao smiled bitterly. The supernatural organization couldn't care that far. What happened in Kansas City would naturally be handled by the local supernatural organization. They had no right to interfere. No matter what organization it was, they all had their own territorial awareness. If they accepted an invitation from the government, a local organization, or a request from the victim, they could go and help. If not, then it really had nothing to do with them. Plus, these body thefts might not be supernatural. It could be a criminal organization. It could also be a criminal organization that was selling human organs. The supernatural organization was mainly responsible for supernatural incidents in Los Angeles and the surrounding areas. Of course, if it happened in California, Chen Zhao could still interfere. LA's law and order are better. Fei Lai glanced at Chen Zhao's bragging and rolled her eyes. She stood up and held her stomach. Seeing Fei Lai stand up, Chen Zhao immediately went to help her. Chen, I'm not an old woman, Fei Lai said. Don't come and help me just because I can't move. I want to walk by myself. Fine. Fei Lai walked to the vineyard. The vines were in full bloom. In another 3 months, there would be bunches of grapes on the trees again. A dozen underlings were working hard in the vineyard. They were plucking the dead leaves from the vines and catching insects by hand. Not far away, there was a herd of grazing cows on the grass. One of them seemed to be approaching Phalai. At this moment, the princess appeared out of nowhere and roared at the bull. The cow turned around and ran. Princess came to Phalai and licked her palm. Phalai patted Princess' head. Even at home, Chen Zhao had to watch her closely. Phalai sat under Eugenius and gradually fell asleep. Just then, a few underlings came over with blankets and pillows for Phalai. Princess lay beside Phalai and enjoyed the spring sunlight. Eugenius' treetop shook, and a few golden spots fell down. This was the excess spiritual qi that Eugenius absorbed from the surroundings. Because the surrounding spiritual qi was too abundant, Eugenius absorbed a lot of it too. It could be seen from the lush plants that Eugenius managed it very well. Chapter 1345. A few people came from the other side of Mirror Lake. Professor Curson, it's so beautiful here. Yeah, but it's someone else's private property. Curson pointed at the eye-catching villa on the other side of the lake. Forget it. Let's take some samples and leave, the girl said regretfully. They each took out a container, planning to fill some water by the lake. Just then, a rustling sound came from the reeds behind them. There seems to be something in there. The girl stopped and turned to look at the reeds. Maybe a beaver, Curson said. However, the next moment, a huge black wolf crawled out of the reeds. The black wolf was almost 3 meters tall and 1.6 meters tall at the shoulder. It moved up and down, making a hunting posture and letting out a low growl. Damn it! Everyone was frightened. They never thought that they would actually meet a wolf here. They were less than 10 kilometers away from the city. They had come here along the river. They had thought that this was not even a remote area, so they did not bring any weapons. They did not expect to see such a beast here. Such a ferocious beast could kill them all. Moreover, wolves were the kind of beasts that would kill even if they could not eat. Run! But before they could take a step forward, another white wolf appeared from another direction. It was about the same size as the black wolf. Both were shockingly huge. Go into the water! Go into the water! Curson shouted immediately. Canines could swim, but some wolves were afraid of water. This depended on whether there was a large area of water in the wolf pack's activity area. Curson was betting that the two wolves would not dare to go into the water. Everyone jumped into the water. They were all university students and did not have much of their own opinions. Now that they heard Curson's instructions, they could only listen to him. However, to their disappointment, the black and white wolves followed them into the water. Quick! Quick! Swim! Black Ma and White Ma followed behind. They did not plan to chase after them. Instead, they drove the group of strangers toward the villa. Everyone swam forward with all their might. However, when they reached the center of the lake, they suddenly saw a figure. It seemed to be a child. Why was there a child there? It seemed to be wearing a small swimsuit. However, with the two fiends chasing after them, they didn't have time to think too much. Little Jerlin also saw this group of people. She immediately jumped into the water and swam to the side of this group of people. What are you guys doing? Little friend, run, there's a wolf behind us. Curson wanted to hug Jerlin, but Jerlin immediately swam away. You mean Black Ma and White Ma? Black Ma? White Ma? Everyone was stunned. You know them? Yeah. Black Ma, White Ma, what are you doing? Jerlin looked at Curson and the others. Black Ma and White Ma said you're invaders. What's an invader? This. Everyone could faintly sense that these two wolves were reared by the owner of this place. However, they were also aware of their own problems. They had indeed come uninvited. At this time, everyone saw a person standing on the shore. Beside that person sat an astonishingly large brown bear. The brown bear was taller than the man even when it was sitting. Chen Zhao already knew that a group of intruders had come. Chen Zhao waved his hand, gesturing for them to come over. When Curson and the others reached the shore, they looked rather disheveled. However, they did not dare to approach Chen Zhao. Princess beside Chen Zhao was simply too frightening. Princess was more than 1.9 meters tall at the shoulder. If she stood up, she would be 4 meters tall and weigh nearly 1,800 kilograms. She was already the largest carnivore on land. But soon Black Ma and White Ma also came ashore. Little Jerlin sat on Black Ma's back. Papa! Little Jerlin jumped onto Chen Zhao's back. Chen Zhao picked her up. Chen Zhao looked at Curson and the others. Who are you? Why did you trespass on my private land? I'm Curson, a professor at the University of Southern California, Curson said. These are my students. We're studying the water quality of Los Angeles. We didn't know that this is your private land. We're only here to collect water samples. We didn't mean to offend your land. Trespassing on someone else's private land was a violation of the Fortress Agreement. The other party had the right to kill them. Thus Curson had to be careful. I'm very sorry for our unintentional offense, Curson said. Fine. Chen Zhao nodded. He didn't find any ill intentions or threats. You can leave after taking your water samples. Follow this road, and you'll reach the road outside. Just then Fei Lai walked out. Beside her was a snow-white cougar. She was too beautiful. Everyone's first impression was that she was too beautiful. Even though she was pregnant, her beauty didn't decrease. Instead, it made her look even more radiant. There was also the albino cougar beside her, standing together with this woman, echoing each other. Albino cougar. Oh my God, this is my first time seeing an albino cougar. Chun, who are they? Fei Lai asked. They're university professors and students who came here by mistake, Chen Zhao said. They want to test the water here. The guys were a bit envious of Chen Zhao. He had such a beautiful wife and a beautiful house. This might be their life's goal. Suddenly, the only girl in the group howled in pain. She clutched her thigh and couldn't stand up. San, now what's wrong? Are you okay? Everyone was worried, but they also didn't know what to do. Move, Chen Zhao said, walking forward. Let me take a look. Can you? The guys were a bit hostile toward Chen Zhao. I'm a medical professor at UCLA, Chen Zhao said. Is that enough? Curson didn't expect Chen Zhao to be a professor too. He was very surprised. Chen Zhao squatted down and looked at Sanal's thigh. It's fine. Her thigh tendon is dislocated. With that, Chen Zhao pinched Sanal's thigh hard and guided the tendon back to its original position. Sanal immediately stopped screaming in pain, but she still couldn't stand up. It's fine, but you better take her to the hospital for a checkup. Sir, can I borrow your phone? Black Ma, go get my phone. Curson and the others saw Black Ma return with a phone in his mouth. Chapter 1346. An hour later a woman arrived. She was very imposing. When she got out of the car, she slammed the door and walked with the wind. A pair of high heels tapped the ground. Although she wasn't young anymore, she still wore heavy makeup and looked down on everyone. Sanner, who hurt you? The woman asked at the top of her voice. Mom, no one hurt me. I got hurt by accident. Saul knew his mother's temper. She didn't want to cause trouble at someone else's house. Chen Zhao and Fei Lai had already returned to their room. They didn't care about what was happening outside. But Saul's mother didn't let it go. She made up a story. Did the owner of this place attack you? Mom. No, it's just my leg cramps, Saul said. Mom, take me home. But Saul's mother didn't let it go. She went up and knocked on the glass door. Open up. Mom. Saul hurriedly pulled his mother back. Move away. Saul's mother was used to being domineering. She kicked the glass door hard. Open up. The door opened. Saul's mother was about to speak. But what she faced was a bloody mouth and a huge body that was like a stone wall. Roar. A bloody wind blew at Saul's mother's face. She was so scared that she fell to the ground. Nothing could destroy a person's courage more than death. Saul's mother's previous dominance was built on this civilized society. However, when she was facing a wild beast, she could not do anything about it. All of her strength vanished in an instant. Everyone covered their ears. This was the wildest roar that came from the beast. Saul's mother screamed and ran away on all fours. Hearing Princess's roar, everyone thought that Saul's mother would be killed. Luckily, Princess didn't move or speak. Saul's mother only heaved a sigh of relief after she ran outside. She was no longer as dominant as before. She looked at Princess in fear. What was that? A monster. Saul, why didn't you tell me there was a monster here? Mom, stop fooling around here. Let's go. No one hurt me. Sanal's mother's face alternated between red and white. In the past, she had always been able to gain the upper hand, whether it was reasonable or not. But here, she was actually threatened by a wild beast. Just then, little Gerlin ran to the door and threw an egg at Saul's mother's body. "Get out of here, you old witch. Little Gerlin hates you." Seeing little Gerlin's cuteness, the others turned their heads away. To be honest, Sangner's mother had been causing trouble ever since she arrived, and they were quite displeased with her. Now that they were disgraced by the princess and humiliated by little Gerlin, they suddenly felt that it was quite interesting. Sangner's mother blushed and turned away angrily. "Princess, we're not angry. Little Gerlin will go to Daddy's place to steal something delicious for you." Little Gerlin patted Princess' thigh. Roar. The princess gently licked little Gerlin, nudged little Gerlin, and let her go back inside. Sanel's mother left with a gloomy face. Saner was also a little angry at his mother. They had been getting along well with Chen Zhao's family. At least after the misunderstanding was resolved, Chen Zhao did not make things difficult for them. Moreover, Chen Zhao had also treated her leg cramp. But as soon as his mother arrived, she started to pester him endlessly. But in the end, his mother was standing up for him. Saner did not even have the right to complain. Sangner's mother felt a little out of breath and dizzy. She was not frightened by Princess, but because Gerlin calling her an old witch had angered her. When they returned home, Sangner's mother was very depressed. "Sangner, I'm tired. I've already contacted Dr. Howell. I'm going to rest." "Mom, it's just a misunderstanding. Don't take it to heart." Sangner's mother nodded slightly, looking rather down. An hour later, their personal doctor Howell arrived. Howell had been serving their family for many years, so Sangner was very familiar with him. "Sangner, I heard that you're injured. Can I take a look? My right leg cramped up because of the strenuous swimming, but a doctor treated it, and it's almost back to normal now, Mr. Howell. Your leg was injured when you were young. I've told you many times that you can't do vigorous exercises," Howell said in a somewhat reproachful tone. "But the doctor who treated you was very good. It doesn't seem to have left you with any side effects." "Mr. Howell, can you go and see my mother? She was frightened today, and she's been very depressed since she came back." "Okay, I'll go and see her. Is she in her room?" Howell asked. "Yes, I'll take you there." Sangner brought Howell to his mother's bedroom and knocked. "Mom, Mr. Howell is here to see you." There was no response. Sangner knocked again, but there was still no response. Sangner pulled the doorknob. Thankfully, the door was not locked from the inside. "Mom, I brought Mr. Howell to see you." "Dailymore, it's Howell. Are you okay?" Howell went to the window. On the bed, Dailymore stirred. She opened her eyes slightly. "Howell, why are you in here?" "Sangner said you were in bad shape, so I came to see you." "I'm fine. I'm just a little tired." Dailymore's voice was weak. "Let me examine you. You don't look very well." Howell began to examine Dailymore. First, he checked her heart rate and blood pressure. "Dailymore, your blood pressure is very low, and your heart rate is a little irregular. You need to go to the hospital." "I'm fine. I just need some rest." Dailymore was very tired. "This won't do," Howell said, frowning. He had a medical license, but he could not perform any more treatments. For example, some stimulants are subject to very strict restrictions. "Sangner, call an ambulance." "Okay, I'll do it now." I said no need. Dailymore's temper flared up again. But this time she began to wheeze. This was the symptom of low blood pressure. Weakness, aching limbs, palpitations, and night sweats. "Mom, if you do this again, I'll call Grandma and Grandpa. I don't need those two old bastards to care about me." Seeing that his mother was so stubborn, Sangner dialed his grandfather's number. Chapter 1347. He was done with his day's work. Stephen stretched. He felt as if he had been blessed by God. Usually, editing was a more painful and complicated process than filming. A 120-minute movie might have dozens of hours and thousands of scenes. A scene might have 3 or 4 camera shots, and the most suitable one would be picked. Or 2 scenes that looked similar would take a long time to decide which one to use. However, Stephen and his editing team seemed to be on steroids. Stephen had a very clear picture in his mind. If not for his stamina and the team's endless complaints, Stephen probably wouldn't even want to rest. Just then Stephen's phone rang. Grandpa, Mom's sick, but she doesn't want to go to the hospital. Huh. Okay. Are you at home? I'll go over now. Stephen rubbed his forehead. Stephen was about to get off work too. He left the studio and hurried to Daly's home. Daly Moore was Stephen and Halifa Oliver's only daughter. However, because of their divorce, Daly Moore had a very bad relationship with them. In recent years, they might not even see each other once a year. When they did, it was mostly for arguments. Only his granddaughter would be in contact with Stephen. Stephen arrived at his daughter's house. He saw that Hal was there too, so he greeted him. Hal had once worked for Stephen too. They were familiar with each other. How's Daly? Stephen asked. Mr. Stephen, it's best to send Daly to the hospital, Hal said. I feel like something's wrong with her. Then send her to the hospital, Stephen said. It's not up to her now. No matter how bad their relationship was, they were still father and daughter. San now called an ambulance. By then, Daly had already fallen into a deep sleep. After arriving at the hospital, Hal was in charge of explaining Daly's symptoms to the doctor in charge of emergency treatment. After the doctor's examination, the doctor said to Stephen, Strange. Ms. Daly's physical examination is very strange. She seems to have low blood pressure for no reason. We can't find the cause yet. And she's in a bad condition. The low blood pressure made her unconscious. What should we do now? Stephen asked. We still need to observe. We have to find the cause of the low blood pressure. Okay. The next morning, Daly Moore's condition worsened. Generally speaking, low blood pressure is caused by diseases of the internal organs. The function of the internal organs is diseased, which affects blood pressure. Similarly, low blood pressure could also lead to changes in bodily functions. Stephen and Sannell were woken up by the emergency doctor. Mr. Stephen, Miss Delamore's condition has suddenly become critical. At 6:45 this morning, Miss Delamore's liver is malfunctioning, and her other internal organs have also shown varying degrees of failure. She's out of the emergency room now, but her condition is still not optimistic. Stephen was already quite tired at this time, but his daughter was now in the intensive care unit, so he had to keep his spirits up. However, the hospital's performance made him a little disappointed. Until now, the hospital had not found the reason. Can you cure my daughter or not? Stephen asked with a pale face. Mr. Stephen, please believe us. We're trying our best to save him and find the cause. Every year, 10% of the patients in the world can't find the cause. It's useless even if you force me, the doctor said helplessly. Stephen fell silent, which made Sanner even more anxious. Grandfather, what do we do now? It's okay. I'll think of something, Stephen comforted him. After thinking for a while, Stephen suddenly thought of Chen Zhao. Perhaps Chen Zhao had a way. Before, Stephen had thought that if the hospital could cure his daughter's illness, he would not need to find Chen Zhao anymore. But now, it seemed that he had no choice but to seek Chen Zhao's help. Hey Chen, my daughter is in the hospital now. She's very sick, and the hospital can't find the cause. Can you come over and help me take a look at my daughter? Stephen called. Which hospital? Chen Zhao asked. After all, it was Stephen's family. Chen Zhao could not refuse. Stephen told Chen Zhao the hospital's address. Give me 30 minutes. I'll be there as soon as possible. Okay. 30 minutes later, Chen Zhao arrived at the hospital. Stephen. Seeing Chen Zhao, Stephen was overjoyed. But when Sanner, who was beside Stephen, saw Chen Zhao, his expression turned strange. How come it's you? You are the girl with the leg cramp yesterday? Chen Zhao was also surprised. Stephen, who is she to you? This is my granddaughter, Sanner. Her mother is sick. Grandpa, Mom got a fright at your house and fell sick when she got home. Sanner blamed Chen Zhao. She felt that her mother's illness had something to do with Chen Zhao. Surprise appeared on Stephen's face. He pulled Chen Zhao to the side. Chen, my daughter's illness has something to do with you? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. Your daughter ran to my door and made a ruckus yesterday. I only asked Princess to chase her away. I didn't do anything to her. If I did, she wouldn't be in the ward right now. She'd be in the morgue. That's right. You really didn't do it? Take me to see your daughter first, Chen Zhao said. Stephen nodded and brought Chen Zhao to the ICU. As soon as Chen Zhao entered the ICU, he felt that something was wrong. Magic rippled in the air. Vaguely, Chen Zhao felt that something was wrong. Chen Zhao examined Daily Moore. Indeed, it was as Chen Zhao had expected. Chen, how's Daily Moore? Stephen, ask her to leave first, Chen Zhao said, pointing at Sanner. Is there something I can't know? Sanner didn't want to leave. Sanner, leave first. I don't want to. I want to watch Mom. Sanner, I know you care about your mother. For her sake, leave first. It's not the time for you to throw a tantrum. Very unwillingly, Sanner was persuaded to leave the ICU by Stephen. Your daughter got a fright at my door yesterday. It's not a big problem. But how did she become like this? You know I have some special abilities, Chen Zhao said. I know. Stephen nodded. Your daughter and I are the same kind of person. Ha! Your daughter is a witch. My daughter is a witch. How come I didn't know? Chapter 1348. Hearing Chen Zhao's words, Stephen was shocked. Chen, you have to save my daughter. Don't worry, Chen Zhao said. I've stabilized her condition. It won't worsen. You said that my daughter is a witch. Is that true? She can't be considered a complete witch yet. She needs to go through a real trial of life and death before she can gain magic power and learn magic. Only then can she become a real witch. You said that she went through a trial of life and death. Then what? After she wakes up, she'll definitely be attacked by all sorts of evil spirits within 3 days. That's a trial of life. Then what? Can you protect her? Gaia can protect her. She doesn't need my protection, Chen Zhao said. Ha! Gaia Shishi too? Gaia is very powerful. She can handle most situations. Don't worry, Chen Zhao said. Are you sure my daughter will be fine? Don't worry, Chen Zhao said. She'll be fine. Do I need to tell her specifically? No need, Chen Zhao said coolly. Just don't let her leave Gaia's sight for 3 nights after she wakes up. Stephen heaved a long sigh, but he was still worried. How about you watch my daughter for me? I'm not free. Chen Zhao rejected him without thinking. Chen Zhao really didn't like Stephen's daughter's temper. If the woman wasn't Stephen's daughter, Chen Zhao might not even help her. Chen Zhao didn't think that he had a good temper to watch over her for 3 days. Okay, I'll find Gaia. Give her this potion in 3 batches, Chen Zhao said. I gave her 1 just now. Give her the second batch in 6 hours. Okay, got it. Stephen accepted the potion. After a moment of hesitation, he said to Chen Zhao, Chen, I'm sorry for my daughter's offense. You are you, and your daughter is your daughter, Chen Zhao said. Just like how I believe that you won't stand by if something happens to Jerlin in the future. But that doesn't mean that I can accept her. So you don't have to apologize to her. In fact, this wasn't a big conflict, nor was there any deep hatred between them. Chen Zhao didn't plan to fight to the death. He was just expressing his attitude. Stephen was Stephen, and his daughter was his daughter. Of course, Jerlin is my goddaughter. When the two left the ICU, Sanger immediately went up to them and asked anxiously, Grandpa, how's Mom? She's fine, Zhao said. Jerlin, Stephen said. He's the one who killed Mom. So he came here to pretend to be a good guy. Sannel. Stephen's tone became more serious. Is this what your mother taught you? Chun, Sanger said. Chun. Stephen, I'm leaving. Chen Zhao didn't want Stephen to be stuck in the middle. After Chen Zhao left Zhao Tt. With Gaia's current strength, he would be able to put up a fight even against the Third Knight's awakening. T's right. T Zhout. Chunelchent. Zhao said. T. Even if Dahlia's talent was heaven-defying, at the age of almost 50, her talent had mostly been worn down. Chen Zhao didn't think she could awaken on the Third Night. It was most likely the First Night. It was still the same reason he was too old. Gaia agreed. After talking to Gaia, Chen Zhao got another call from Kefui Bus. Mr. Chen, do you have time? I feel itchy and prickly. That's normal, Chen Zhao said. You don't need me to treat you. Usually, patients with STD were more fragile and easily paranoid, even letting their imaginations run wild. Most STDs weren't hard to treat, but patients sometimes wondered if they had AIDS. Chen Zhao had met a patient like that before. The biggest enemy of STDs wasn't the disease, but themselves. Because the disease was painful, doctors had to help. First, they couldn't hide the disease. They had to communicate with the patient gently. Before Kefwi Bus was diagnosed, she didn't feel anything. But after the diagnosis, Kefwi Bus had been restless. Mr. Chun, I feel like everyone in the manor knows what disease I have. They look at me strangely, Kefwi Bus said in a low voice. Kefwi Base said in a low voice. They're talking about me behind my back. Once I get close, they stop talking. You're worrying too much. Only you and I know. There won't be a third person. Trust me. No, there's another person. My husband, that bastard. That bastard infected me with the disease. How about this? I'll go to your house in the afternoon, Chen Zhao said. Okay, come for lunch. I'll prepare lunch for you. No need. I still have work. I'll only come in the afternoon. Okay, please be quick. In the afternoon after eating lunch, Chen Zhao went to Kefwi Bus Manor. Since he'd taken the money, he had to do what he could. Comforting the patient was also a doctor's job. He couldn't just give her the medicine and leave her alone. Chen, you're here. Have you eaten? How about I ask the kitchen to make some food for you? No, thank you, Chen Zhao said, smiling. How's your body? How about we take a walk? Sure, let's go. Kefwi Bus nodded. Kefwi Bus didn't look too good. It wasn't the disease itself, but her mental state. Plus, she didn't wear makeup, so she looked rather haggard. Actually, your disease isn't serious. It's actually a common disease. But before you're sure your husband's cured, don't have sex with him. No, I won't let him touch me again, Kefwi Bus said. I'll divorce him this month. Kefwi Bus' face was filled with anger. Her tolerance for Oni had reached its limit. Chen Zhao wouldn't interrupt a patient's relationship problems. Take 30 minutes to exercise every day. Whether it's aerobic or anaerobic exercise, it can increase your immunity. Chun, I plan to move to the suburbs for a few days. What do you think? Chapter 1349. Is this your house too? Chen Zhao asked. It was a bit far from Los Angeles. Rich people in America like to build houses far from cities, but this place was too far. It was at least 50 kilometers. Yes, the environment is nice, right? It was indeed nice. It was in a forest, and the surrounding trees had been planted and decorated. It was indeed nice. However, the villa wasn't very big. Perhaps it was to be close to nature, so it was only around 300 square meters. Flowers and plants were planted around it. But is it okay for you to live alone? Chen Zhao asked. After all, it was far from the city. It was dangerous to live here alone, especially since Kefwi Base was a super rich person. If she lived here, it would be hard for her bodyguards to stay here. Thank you for your concern, Kefwi Base said. No one will disturb me here. Since she had already decided, Chen Zhao didn't bother to say more. After all, he was in no position to persuade her. People in America cared about their privacy. Even good friends wouldn't interfere with other people's decisions too much. Plus, Chen Zhao and Kefwi Base only knew each other. Among Chen Zhao's many patients, Kefwi Base was relatively easy to get along with. So, Chen Zhao didn't have any bad feelings for her. That was all. Even for friends like Steven or Rasva, if they wanted to move to such a remote place, Chen Zhao would only tell them to be careful. He wouldn't try to persuade them not to live so far away. There aren't any beasts nearby, so there won't be any danger, Kefwi Base said. The most dangerous ones aren't necessarily the beasts. With Kefwi Base's intelligence, she could obviously tell that Chen Zhao was reminding her. It's getting late. I should leave. Are you staying for dinner? My girlfriend's pregnant, Chen Zhao said. She needs my company more. Kefwi Base smiled. All right then, goodbye. If you feel uncomfortable, you can call me at any time. After you finish the painkillers I left for you, you'll be fine. Also, remember to wash up after exercising and wipe yourself dry. Don't let your lower body get wet. Goodbye. Chen Zhao nodded. Okay. I'll remember that. Bye. After Chen Zhao left, Cliff Base called Mansari. Mr. Mansari, I've moved to the suburbs according to your request. The rest is up to you. I don't want anything to go wrong. Of course, I guarantee you won't get hurt, Mansari said confidently. Kefwi Base's original plan was to get Mansari and his intelligence department to help her find Oni's overseas account information. However, Oni was too careful. Even the intelligence department of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department couldn't find any relevant information. However, Mansari found out that Oni seemed to be in contact with some gang members. So he speculated that Oni couldn't wait and wanted to make a risky move to kill Kefwi Base. Therefore, Mansari took the initiative to propose a bold plan to let Kefwi Base move to another place without her bodyguards. He used himself as bait and waited for Oni to take the bait. Then Mansari arranged for someone to protect Kefwi Base. To put it bluntly, this was a trap. That smelly. Oni was so angry that he couldn't control himself. When he heard that Kefwi Base and that Asian had gone to a villa in the suburbs, he almost lost his mind. She did it on purpose. She wanted to embarrass him. Every time he thought about how his wife was flirting with another man, Oni felt his blood boil. Even though he and Kefwi Base no longer had any feelings for each other, they were only husband and wife in name. But as a man, he still couldn't tolerate something like this happening right under his nose. After smashing everything in the room into smithereens, Oni gradually calmed down. However, his expression became more and more hideous. Oni picked up the phone again. "Hey Fernandez, how's your preparation?" "Don't keep rushing me," Fernandez roared. "If you keep rushing me, we'll cancel our cooperation. $300 million. $300 million. I want you to kill that bitch in 3 days. Fernandez was silent for a long time. "I'm not ready yet," he said. "That woman has already moved to the suburbs. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and she didn't bring any bodyguards with her. If we miss this opportunity, when she gets bored of living in the suburbs and moves back to her current manner, it won't be so easy to make a move on her." Fernandez thought for a moment. Wasn't that what he wanted? "I'll do it as soon as possible." "I have one more request," Oni said. "What is it?" Fernandez asked unhappily. "I want that bitch's lover to die too," Oni said with a hideous expression. "That's easy. I'll send someone to kill him after this," Fernandez said. "No, I want to kill him in front of that bitch." "What do you want me to do?" "Control that bitch first, then tell her to call her lover here." At this moment, Oni was frantically imagining the scene. The more he thought, the more excited he became. The more excited he was, the more he couldn't control himself. Due to the huge pressure recently, and the embarrassment Kefwi Base had given him, Oni's mental state had always been in a tense state. It wasn't just recently. Ever since he started pursuing Kefwi Base, he had been very careful. However, Kefwi Base was like most rich people. She didn't let love and marriage go to her head. She didn't give him any benefits in the prenuptial agreement. After getting married, Oni couldn't control his lower half, and found more than 10 lovers outside. After years of hard work, if Kefwi Base kicked him out of the house, he would have nothing left. Even though he had gotten almost $100 million from Base Corporation through embezzlement, it wasn't enough for him. He didn't want that but more money. Moreover, he believed that Kefwi Base would definitely sue him in court if she divorced him. At that time, he would be in an even more miserable state. Oni was already helpless now. Chapter 1350. Achu Chunjiao sneezed. "Huh." Fei Lai distanced herself from Chunjiao in disgust. "Why didn't you tell me you had a cold?" Chunjiao was dumbfounded. Cold? That didn't exist. Unless it was magic allergy. But he hadn't devoured anything recently. How could he be allergic to magic? Chunjiao usually wouldn't devour enemies directly. Most of the time, he would just kill them and destroy the evidence. Devouring could increase his magic power in a short period of time, but it was also risky. Magic allergy was a very troublesome symptom. It could also get out of control. But Chunjiao only sneezed. He didn't have any other symptoms. Just then Chunjiao's phone rang. "Hey Gaia." "Chun, do you have a conflict with this woman?" "A small one," Chunjiao said calmly. "I think I know why you two have a conflict," Gaia said. Gaia hung up after exchanging a few words with Chunjiao. Just then Daily Moore, who'd finished the discharge procedures, looked at Gaia. "I said don't follow me. I don't need a bodyguard." Gaia followed Daily Moore the entire time. When Daily Moore drove away, Gaia followed behind her. When Daily Moore returned home, She wanted to stop Gaia outside, but Gaia drove her Hummer and smashed the metal door open. "You crazy woman!" Daily Moore rushed out of the car and roared at Gaia. "I'm calling the police. 3 days at most. After 3 days, whether you live or die, I won't follow you," Gaia said calmly. "That's what I promised Mr. Steven. How much money did he pay you? I'll pay you double. Get out of my sight now." Gaia still looked at Daily Moore coldly. Furious, Daily Moore turned around and left. She even swaggered into Daily Moore's house. "This is my house. I didn't allow you to come in. If you have any objections, you can tell Mr. Steven," Gaia said. "If he thinks I'm unnecessary, I'll leave." Daily Moore was furious. She didn't know what that old asterisk shoal was thinking. He'd arranged a bodyguard for her for no reason. "Will you only follow me for 3 days?" Daily Moore asked. 3 days at most. What do you mean? Is it possible that it will only be a day? Or 2? Yes. Why? Delamore didn't understand. "You'll understand when the time comes," Gaia said. Ridiculous. Dahlia hated riddles the most. "The things in my house are all very expensive. You'd better not touch them." Delamore turned and went upstairs. "I'm going to bed. Do you want to follow me?" Gaia sat in the living room, ignoring Dahlia Moore's sarcasm. After Daily Moore went upstairs, she took out her phone and called Steven. "Dad, what do you mean? That woman is the bodyguard you arranged for me?" "Not really a bodyguard. She will only be by your side for 3 days at most. During these 3 days, she will protect your safety. I don't need a bodyguard. Even if I do, I have the money to hire one myself. Your money belongs to me and your mother. Your company's annual income comes from the business I introduced to you, so you have no right to refuse my arrangements." Dahlia gritted her teeth. Even though she and her parents were like fire and water, Dahlia had no choice. Even though she and her parents were like fire and water, she had to admit that her career relied heavily on her parents. If his mother hadn't been Halifa Oliver, if his father hadn't been Steven, would he still have received so many Hollywood contracts? She really wanted to tell her father, "I don't need your help." But she couldn't bring herself to say it. Even now, she didn't have the courage to say no to her father. If she really dared to say it, her father would really take away all the resources. "Where's Sannel? Why don't I see her?" "She's staying with me for a few days," Steven said. "Don't worry about her. She's much more mature than you." Dahlia tossed her phone aside and lay on the bed. She slept from morning to evening. Just then Dahlia opened her eyes, stimulated by a fragrance. Dahlia stood by the window and saw Gaia barbecue by the pool. The fragrance was Gaia's barbecue. Dahlia also felt a little hungry. After washing up, she came downstairs. "You're barbecuing at my house? Are you going to say that I made the decision on my own again?" Gaia looked up at Dahlia and picked up a bottle of wine. "Do you want some?" Dahlia took the bottle and looked at it. "Nameless wine? No, it's tens of thousands of dollars a bottle." Dahlia found a glass. The moment the wine was poured, the fragrance filled the air. "It really is nameless wine." Dahlia was a little dumbfounded. "Where did you get it?" After all, she was a loyal fan of nameless wine. But she didn't have any connections. She occasionally went to the black market to buy it, and one bottle cost nearly $300,000. Even she couldn't drink it to her heart's content. Everyone knew that nameless wine was the best investment to maintain one's value. In the past 2 months, the number of nameless wines sold in Mara supermarket had clearly decreased. This caused the nameless wine to become extremely scarce on the black market. The price had risen by another $20,000. Before Mara supermarket's batch of nameless wine arrived next month, the black market price would probably exceed $310,000. Dahlia didn't expect Gaia to have nameless wine. Dahlia looked down and saw a DUI beside Gaia. There were also a few bottles of nameless wine on it. "Where did you get so much nameless wine?" "Ask your father and see if he's willing to tell you," Gaia said calmly. "My father knows." But thinking about it, with her father's status, it wasn't strange for him to know the source of nameless wine. Dahlia also ate the barbecue with Gaia. After eating, Gaia moved her wine rack back to the Hummer. "How about you sell me those bottles of wine? I'll buy them for $300,000 a bottle." "I don't lack money," Gaia said, of course. Gaia had tens of millions of dollars herself. Moreover, Chen Zhao had given the wine to her. He definitely didn't want to sell it for money. Huh? Dahlia suddenly saw her daughter standing in the dark living room with her back facing her. Sanger, when did you come back? Dahlia walked into the living room and reached out to grab Sanger's shoulder. However, when Sannel turned around, he saw a bloody face. Ah! Dahlia screamed. Chapter 1351. Bang! Suddenly, a fist smashed into Sanger's face. Instantly, Sanger's head exploded. Then his body turned into a puff of smoke. Then. You killed my daughter? Daly's lips trembled. That's not your daughter. No. Isn't that my daughter? Dallamore's mind was a little confused. Just now, what happened just now? That's why I'm with you, Gaia said calmly. You can go to sleep now. Looks like it's your first night. What do you mean? What are you talking about? You don't need to know. You can sleep peacefully. No one will hurt you. Do you think I can sleep now? She'd only woken up for less than an hour. Even if she really needed to sleep, she couldn't. Tell me what's going on. Are you sure you want to know? Of course. I need to know. I don't want to be treated like an idiot. You were sick earlier, which is a sign of your magic awakening. In the next 3 days, many evil spirits will attack you, so I need to protect you for 3 days, Gaia said. Seems like you'll attract evil spirits tonight. It'll save me some time. Daly's mind went blank. My father knows too. He only knows a little, Gaia said. Gaia sat back on the sofa. Sit down. Don't be so nervous. There aren't any dangerous evil spirits on the first night. I've dealt with them a few times before. Gaia had dealt with the second night's evil spirit attacks before. She'd felt quite relaxed then. As for the third night, the only time she'd experienced it was Norma's night. The evil spirit society had invaded, but everyone in the society had been there, including Chen Zhao. Gaia wasn't confident in facing the third night alone. Of course, if Gaia wasn't confident, she could bring people to the headquarters. However, it was only Daly's first night, so there was no need to make a big deal out of it. Just then Daly screamed again. Outside, there are so many people outside. Gaia looked outside. There were indeed some faintly discernible figures. They were all weak spirits. Some couldn't even be considered evil spirits. These weak spirits did not dare to enter. They were waiting for the slightly stronger evil spirits to attack first, and then they would take advantage of the situation. At the same time, she was glad that she didn't throw a tantrum and chase Gaia away. Or rather, Gaia didn't leave because of her tantrum. Suddenly, the spiritual bodies outside scattered in all directions like birds startled by the mere twang of a bowstring. There seemed to be a hand in the darkness that was trying to capture those spiritual bodies. A chill ran down Dahlia's spine. What's wrong? What happened outside? Can't you see? A powerful evil spirit has come and is currently devouring those spirit bodies. When he is full, he will attack this place. Gaia said. I can only vaguely see a blurry shadow. Gaia understood. It was because Demon was too weak. Suddenly, Gaia pulled Daly more behind her, and the glass door in front of them shattered. Countless fragments shot in, and a 4 to 5 meter tall evil spirit charged in. At this moment, Dalymore finally saw the huge evil spirit clearly. That twisted face sent chills down one's spine. In fact, from Gaia's point of view, this evil spirit was bluffing. Any evil spirit from the association would be able to torture this fellow. Evil spirits were not necessarily stronger the bigger they were. Usually, an evil spirit could grow to such a size only after devouring dozens of evil spirits of the same size. But this evil spirit had only devoured a few ordinary spirits. How strong could it be? Gaia stepped forward and punched. The evil spirit screamed and shattered. Suddenly, Dalymore screamed behind her. 2 evil spirits had appeared behind her without her noticing. While Gaia was dealing with the evil spirit in front of her, they wanted to drag Dalymore away. Scram! Gaia's body instantly exploded with terrifying dragon might. The souls of the 2 evil spirits were instantly destroyed. Gaia's attack power had always been her strength. She was stronger than Hallie's and Norma, but perception had always been her weakness. Hold my hand, Gaia said, reaching out. Dalymore hurriedly grabbed Gaia's hand. Then, Gaia released a trace of magic power and sent it into Dalamore's body. But this magic power felt like a raging flood in Dalamore's body. Another evil spirit attacked from behind, but as soon as it touched Dalymore, its body turned into dust. There were too many attacking evil spirits. Soon, the magic power Gaia had lent to Dalymore was used up. But to Gaia, this bit of magic power was enough to destroy so many evil spirits. It was worth it. If she had to attack herself, it would consume more magic power. Dalymore watched Gaia's continuous battle and was secretly anxious. But she did not know how to help Gaia. In fact, this level of fighting was no pressure for Gaia. She even dared to go through the motions in Aduza's house. Dalamore's living room was already a mess. The battle lasted for 4 hours. At 1 in the morning, it finally ended. Gaia let out a long sigh. Okay, it's over. You can rest in peace now. It's over? Yes, it's over. Gaia nodded. Are you going to leave? Dalymore asked, a little frightened. After all, she had just experienced the first supernatural event in her life. How could she sleep now? Yes, you're not in danger anymore. But I'm still scared. Didn't you always want to chase me away? Sorry, I didn't know. No need to apologize, Gaia said calmly. But after a moment of hesitation, Gaia said, if you encounter similar incidents in the future, you can ask Mr. Stephen to look for me. He has my contact number. Also, you have magic now, so you can learn some self-defense spells. Where should I learn? There are some spiritualists in LA. If you're willing to spend some money, they might be willing to teach you some magic. Of course, don't be tricked. Can you teach me? I can't. I don't know magic. We're not the same. Not the same? What do you mean? Okay, I really should go. Don't tell anyone about what happened tonight. Not even your father. It won't do him any good. He's just a normal person. Chapter 1352. Mom, what happened here? Is it a war? When Sandnell returned home, he saw that his house was in ruins. Dalymore's expression was calm. Compared to what she had experienced last night, her daughter's screams did not affect her at all. Early in the morning, Gaia left. Dalymore found an engineering company to repair her house. Then he dialed Stephen's number. Dad. It seemed that she had not called him that for a long time. Dalymore was not used to it. Dalymore, are you okay? I'm fine, Dalymore said. I want to know more about Gaia. Don't you hate her? That's because I didn't know. So you know now. I experienced something last night. Oh, what did you experience last night? It's better if you don't know, Dalymore said. A friend of mine introduced Gaia to me. She used to be an actress in my crew, and was also the choreographer. But the crew has been disbanded. Then give me your friend's contact. No. Why? Because my friend hates you. What? Dalymore's expression froze. Why does he hate me? Do I know the friend you mentioned? Do you remember that you were scared by a bear a few days ago, and ended up in the hospital? Then that friend is the owner of that place? That's right, Stephen said. I asked him to treat your illness, but he still hates you. Dalymore was depressed. She had offended someone for no reason. You should also control your temper. My friend's temper is even worse than yours. He doesn't care who you are. If I didn't ask, my friend and even Gaia wouldn't protect you. Dalymore was silent. No wonder Gaia was always cold to her. Should I apologize to that person? Maybe later. I'll take you there then. Stephen's tone softened again. After all, she was his daughter. He could not ignore her. Mr. Mansari, are your people here? Kefwi Base looked at the military vehicles behind them. There are still 20 people. They have already spread out in the forest around the villa, and have begun to make arrangements. Mansari said, the 20 people in front of you are hiding in your villa to protect you. Are you sure they can protect me? Although Kefwi Base agreed to use her as bait, that was under the premise that she was absolutely safe. Every rich person cherished their life, and Kefwi Base was no exception. The reason why she agreed to Mansari's plan was mainly because she didn't want to drag things out. Every day, the person by her bedside was thinking about how to kill her, which also made Kefwi Base unable to eat or sleep well. That was why she made up her mind to use herself as bait. Get rid of your bodyguards. and leave your life in the hands of Mansari and his counterterrorism security department. Boss, I've already set it up. I guarantee that not even a fly can fly in, Tommy said. After following Mansari into the anti-terrorism security department, Tommy became one of Mansari's confidants and took over the Anti-Terrorism Operations Command Center. He was responsible for arranging and deploying anti-terrorist operations. Tommy himself was also a professional. Unlike India, Tommy had participated in the operation to hunt down the king of terrorists. It could be said that the fall of the king of terrorists was inextricably linked to Tommy and his team. Okay, I don't want our employer to suffer any harm. Don't worry, boss. Even if they send an army over, I won't let them return. Miss Kefwi, I'll leave this walkie-talkie to you. If you have any problems, you can communicate at any time. Okay. I should go too. Aren't you staying here? Kefwi Base asked. It doesn't matter if I'm here or not. Your defense here is close to a war fortress. For this operation, I provided the ammunition needed for a war. Don't worry. I won't let you lose money. Kefwi Base didn't have much else, but she had a lot of money. For people without money, their biggest problem was how to make money. For people with money, their biggest problem was how to spend it. Kefwi Base had a lot of money. A rich person like her wasn't limited to how to spend or how to make money. What she worried about was where to invest her money. Money would only depreciate and become less and less valuable. This was also why large companies and tycoons had so little cash flow. If they converted their money into real estate, it didn't matter how the money depreciated. Even if the US dollar fell to the level of the Zimbabwe dollar, they would still eat and drink. For someone like Kefwi Base, her assets could be said to be very complicated. Other than the main Base Group shares, she also had shares in various industries, including some military industries. A government-armed department, like the Anti-Terrorism Security Department, was also a kind of investment. Of course, she couldn't get shares, and the Anti-Terrorism Security Department didn't have shares either. However, she could gain a certain amount of influence through this funding method. In the future, if she encountered some trouble outside of the business world, she could use pressure to ask the Anti-Terrorism Security Department for help. To put it bluntly, it was similar to political donations. Why was a country like America, which had almost eradicated bribery, still criticized for being corrupt? It was because large financial groups had the right to bribe. They didn't say that the money was bribery, but in the name of donation, which was legally allowed. Mr. Fernandez, you're finally here. Oni finally saw Fernandez and his team members. The trucks stopped one by one, and Oni looked at them. What's in them? You'll know, Fernandez said. When do you start? Aren't you in a hurry? Let's do it tonight. Fernandez didn't want to stay in L.A. for too long. The longer he stayed here, the less safe it would be. Once the supernatural organization found out that the Hermit Order trespassed in L.A. and did whatever they wanted. With how domineering they were, they definitely wouldn't just stand by and watch. No matter how proud Fernandez was, he wasn't arrogant enough to think that he could go against the supernatural organization. Chapter 1353. Mr. Fernandez, won't we attract too much attention if we drive so many trucks there? Oni asked worriedly. What? Are you scared? Fides glanced at Oni, who was sitting beside him. How could he not be scared? After all, Oni was just a normal person. But he also understood that even if he backed out now, Fides wouldn't let him go. So even if it was a dead end, he had to walk this path to the end. The sun had already set. A few trucks sped through the dark forest path. Boom! An explosion occurred without any warning. The truck at the front seemed to have run over a landmine. It fell to the side of the road with the back of the truck lying across the road. What's going on? What happened? What's going on? Fides frowned. Didn't you say that your wife lives alone in the front villa? Yeah. Oni suddenly paused. Damn it, that bitch, it's a trap. A trap. Looks like your wife recruited a bunch of people. They actually dared to use landmines. What do we do? What do we do? It's over, that bitch. Oni yelled angrily. Fides didn't seem to care. Good thing we came prepared. Otherwise, we'd be in big trouble. Oni turned to the calm Fernandez and asked, "Do you have a plan? Do you have an idea?" "It's just a small problem," Fidey said calmly. Fidey said casually, and took out his walkie-talkie. "Machalo, release all our pets." Just then, the doors of the truck on the ground opened. A large amount of cold air gushed out of the truck. Then, the doors of the trucks in front and behind opened as well. There seemed to be a large amount of ice inside each truck. However, apart from a large amount of cold air gushing out, Oni did not make any other movements. "What now?" Oni asked. "No rush," Fidey said nonchalantly. Of course Oni was anxious. He was betting everything he had on this gamble. If Fidey's couldn't solve the problem for him, then he would suffer a fate worse than death. Suddenly, Oni saw something crawl out of the truck in front of him. A human. It had gray skin, and looked like a human at first glance. However, that thing looked like some kind of wild beast. The thing stood up, and turned to the truck in which Oni and Furtis were. A second, a third, a fourth. More and more monsters came out of the carriage. Is that a human? Oni felt uncomfortable being stared at by that thing. It looked like a human being, but it was bulging and squirming. A tentacle stretched out from its mouth, stretched its chin, and rolled its eyes. Liquid flowed down the side of the creature's mouth. "Do you remember what we were doing the last time we met?" Felix asked. "What were you fishing for in the sea?" Oni was reluctant to recall the last time they met. At that time, Oni and a few models were having fun on the yacht when they encountered Furtis and his men at sea. The models were given to Fernandez, and Oni paid a ransom of $5 million for them. Fighters kept his promise and let him go. He even gave Kieran his contact number. It's to fish out these things. To be precise, it's to fish out the parasites in their bodies. Then what exactly is Nana? Chromis egg, Felix said. They can live on most organisms, of course. Most of them are animals, said Feeds. As he spoke, Felix took out a container from under the seat. There was a creature as thick as an arm inside. It was obvious that the creature was alive. Oni moved his butt subconsciously. He did not want to get too close to it. Felix pressed his palms on both ends of the container. The creature squirmed a little, and the Chromis parasites all turned around, as if they had received some kind of message. This is the mother's body. Controlling it means controlling all of Chromis' offspring, Felix said. Where did it come from? Chromis. It has existed longer than humans. Don't think about where it came from. No one knows where it came from. It's a monster that hides deep in the sea. This thing can be used as a biological weapon, right? Hee. Once exposed to air for a long time, they will die within a few days. That's why we need to freeze them first, and release them when we need them. If such a parasite really existed in this world, all the species in the world would have gone extinct. Everything in the world had its nemesis, and even supernatural creatures had their nemesis. Captain, someone triggered a landmine. Are you sure it was done by a human? The landmine we planted is an ML55 landmine. It will only detonate when the pressure exceeds 1 ton. Does that mean that someone drove a car and detonated the landmine? Yes. It seems that our prey is here. Get ready. Tommy didn't know what he and his teammates were about to face. Just then, they heard noises in front of them. They're here. Let's show those bastards what we're capable of. Captain, there's no heat signature on them, a counterstrike said. They could vaguely see figures in front of them, but they couldn't see them with the night vision goggles. Maybe they brought some interference source with them. I don't think they're ordinary gangs. They might be mercenaries. Stay alert. We don't want to be humiliated by a group of mercenaries. Tommy looked through the binoculars and said, Get ready. Open fire when the enemies are 50 meters away. Open fire. Open fire. Knock them down. Data. Instantly, the front line formed by the members of the Counter-Strike Security Department began to spit out bullets. Those figures continued to run forward. Even though they were shot, they didn't slow down. Boom. Boom. In the hail of bullets, some Chromis parasites finally fell to the ground. Then more and more Chromis parasites fell to the ground. Tommy was puzzled. He had been through many battlefields, but he had never experienced a battle like this. These enemies seemed to have no regard for their lives. Without using firearms, they just charged forward. He had thought that they were mercenaries, But it turned out that these people were much weaker than mercenaries. It was impossible for them to charge blindly like this. Chapter 1354. Captain, are they really our enemies? One of the team members asked. Yeah, they're just risking their lives for a joke. Tommy was also at a loss. Even if they were a suicide squad, they should have at least put on a bulletproof vest before charging over. What was the point of them throwing their lives away like this? Suddenly, a person who was supposed to have been shot several times stood up and charged over 10 meters forward. A series of intense gunshots rang out, and the person fell to the ground once more. That scared me. I thought he was a zombie. I hope they can send more of them. Just a few of them isn't satisfying enough. One of the anti-terrorists stepped forward to inspect the corpse that had fallen to the ground. The corpse was on the verge of rotting, and a strong smell lingered in the air. However, there was a hole in its stomach. The hole did not look like it was left behind by a gunshot. The corpse did not look like it had just died. Instead, it looked like it had been dead for a few days. Could this be a corpse that was transported over from somewhere? The anti-terrorist soldier covered his nose and used the barrel of his gun to move the corpse away. The moment the corpse was turned around, something abruptly sprang up from beneath the corpse. This what? The thing instantly wrapped itself around the soldier's neck before trying its best to burrow into the soldier's mouth. Hey, Nolly, it's time to come back. What are you spacing out for? The soldier named Nolly staggered back. Nolly, what's in your mouth? When Nolly got closer, his comrade was able to clearly see a tentacle that was as thick as an arm sticking out of Nolly's mouth. Nolly, what's wrong? Spit that thing out, it's disgusting. At that moment, the tentacle in Nolly's mouth suddenly sprang up. The end of the tentacle spread out like a morning glory. Ah! The soldier was shocked, and he fired the submachine gun in his hand. What happened? Tommy noticed what was going on. You shot your comrade? He has something in his mouth, the soldier said in horror. Tommy also saw something wriggling out of the soldier's mouth. Just as the tentacle was about to strike Tommy pulled out his gun. The tentacle was shot in mid-air and fell to the ground. Tommy felt his scalp go numb. He had a vague feeling that something was wrong. Ah! At this moment, a soldier nearby let out a blood-curdling scream. Tommy saw a tentacle wrapped around the soldier's neck, and the tentacle was about to enter his mouth. Not good. Tommy shouted. Everyone be careful. Sha-sha. Rustling sounds could be heard in the darkness. Tommy vaguely saw something wriggling on the ground in front of them, heading towards them. Then a tentacle emerged from the darkness and strangled Tommy's neck. Tommy immediately grabbed one end of the tentacle and pulled it out with all his might. Shwa! In a moment of desperation, Tommy whipped out his saber and waved it in front of him. The two halves of the tentacle fell to the ground motionless. Don't open your mouth. Don't let the tentacles crawl into the mouth. Inform the others. Captain, there are enemies in the forest again. Damn it. Tommy finally realized that something was wrong. No matter what the situation was, these tentacles and those people were definitely in cahoots. The number of parasites in the second wave was far greater than the first. At the same time, there were also a large number of chromis in the darkness. The soldiers who were in charge of operating the machine guns were suddenly attacked by the chromis larvae that emerged from the darkness. The entire camp was instantly thrown into chaos. The parasites had already rushed forward, and they attacked the soldiers in a frenzy. I am Tommy. The outer defense line has collapsed. The outer defense line has collapsed. There are monsters. Tommy used the walkie-talkie to inform the people in the villa as he fought. At that moment, a parasite pounced on Tommy, and he tried to get up. However, the tentacle hanging from the parasite's mouth bit down on Tommy's neck. Then another chromis larvae crawled into his mouth. What's going on? What happened? Did Oni bring people here? Kefwi Base cried out in fear. The resistance soldiers stationed in the villa began to prepare. Since the outer defense line had been broken, it could only mean that the enemy was very strong. Kefwi Base looked at the soldiers stationed outside the villa, not knowing what to do. She grabbed the phone and wanted to call for help, but there was no signal. No need to call for help. It's useless. They used a satellite signal jamming device. We can only use wireless power. Kefwi Base was even more at a loss. Since Oni had used such high-tech equipment, it could only mean that Oni had come prepared. At that moment, gunshots came from outside the villa. The battle had begun. Da-da-da, boom boom. Damn it, what is this thing? Where did this monster come from? The battlefield outside collapsed in an instant. Kefwi Base saw a tentacle-like thing rush into the villa. She turned and ran in fear. However, the inside and outside of the villa had become a battlefield. She didn't know where to run. A thing with a rotting body pounced on a soldier. Accompanied by the soldier's screams, it finally died in a violent explosion. The battle started very suddenly, and it also ended very suddenly. In the blink of an eye, there was no one left alive in the villa. Kefwi Base trembled in fear. She hid in the kitchen with a fruit knife in her hand. She didn't understand. She couldn't understand. Where did Oni find these monsters? At that moment, a parasite appeared in front of Kefwi Base. Whoa, Kefwi Base screamed. However, the parasite didn't attack her directly. Instead, it moved aside. Oni appeared in front of Kefwi Base. Darling, I'm here. Did you miss me? Oni stood beside the parasite, but it didn't attack him. You. Don't come over. You monster. Kefwi Base waved the fruit knife in her hand. Oni was extremely happy. He'd never felt so happy before. He finally didn't have to swallow his anger in front of Kefwi Base. He no longer had to grovel in front of Chloe Base. He didn't even dare to say anything when Kefwi Base openly cheated on him. Did you come over yourself? Or should I have them drag you out? Kefwi Base's face was pale, her hair a mess. She was frightened. No matter how strong she was in the past, she was just a helpless woman at that moment. Come out, let's talk, Oni said calmly. However, he still had the pride of a victor on his face. That's right, he was the victor. Kefwi Base still didn't dare to go over. Chapter 1355. Kefwi Base screamed as she was dragged out of the kitchen by two parasites. These two parasites used to be members of the anti-terrorism department. But now they had lost their self-awareness. Tentacles were still hanging from their mouths, and disgusting mucus oozed out of their mouths. Kefwi Base was dragged into the living room. She saw a few people sitting in the living room. One of them was Oni. She didn't recognize the others at all. The surroundings were filled with parasites, and a large number of tentacles were wriggling on the ground. Kefwi Base sat on the ground helplessly, her face covered in tears and dirt. She was trembling, unable to control the fear in her body. Dear, are you surprised by this result? Oni looked at Kefwi Base proudly. At this moment, all his humiliation was released. The more miserable Kefwi Base was, the more afraid and desperate she was, the happier and prouder Oni was. What do you want? Kefwi Base mustered her courage and shouted. Haha, what do I want? Don't you know? Honey, I want everything. At this moment, Oni finally didn't need to hide his intentions, his ambitions. Because soon, all his ambitions would be realized. Oni took out a phone. It was Kefwi Base's number. Oni threw it in front of Kefwi Base. Tell that man to come here. Man? Which man? Your lover, that Asian bastard. Oni said with a ferocious expression. You're crazy. I have nothing to do with him. He's my doctor. Cut the crap. Oni slapped Kefwi Base. Hurry, I want to see him. I want him dead. Kefwi Base hesitated for a long time. Oni signaled Felix with his eyes. A baby grimace crawled to Kefwi Base's side. Kefwi Base shuddered when she felt the slippery sensation. She quickly shrank into a corner. Hurry, tell that man to come here. Otherwise you'll end up like them, becoming a host for Krumis. I'm looking forward to seeing if you can still maintain your composure and beauty after becoming a host. Oni joked. I'll call. Kefwi Base could barely control her phone. Fear had engulfed her. I can't get through, there's no signal. Okay, you can fight now. You better control your emotions. I don't want him to hear anything strange, Oni warned. Kefwi Base's face was pale. She tried her best to control her emotions so that she wouldn't cry. Hey, Chun. It's me. Kefwi Base said in a trembling voice. Oni's eyes shot out a warning. I'm out of painkillers. Can you bring me some? Kefui Base bit her lower lip. She hoped that Chen Zhao could understand and help her call the police. After a few seconds of silence, Chen Zhao replied, "No problem. Is it your villa in the suburbs?" Yes. Can you hurry up?" "Okay," Chen Zhao said. "I'll get there as soon as possible. Bear with the pain first." After hanging up, Kefui Base looked at Oni with fear in her eyes. He said to come as soon as possible. Oni crossed his legs and ignored Kefui Base. Then he said to Felders and the others, "After this is over, how about you stay in LA for a few more days? I'll arrange everything for you." "No," Felders answered almost instinctively. Oni was confused. "Do you hate LA that much? After we get the money, we'll leave LA immediately." "Fine." Oni didn't care. Actually, he didn't like interacting with Felders and the others either. These people were too scary. If he didn't have to, he really didn't want to interact with them. "If you're really sincere, you can go somewhere else. We won't mind." "Of course. It'll be my honor." Oni agreed without thinking. He had money now anyway. He could even provide them with food and entertainment for the rest of their lives. "Why don't you like LA?" Oni asked curiously. "LA is a big city. You can do anything you want here." Unfortunately, Felders and the others didn't want to talk about it. "This has nothing to do with you. You better not ask too much. It's not good for you." "Fine, I won't ask anymore." Oni shrugged. "Oh, can you guys and these things hide first? I want to give that guy a surprise." "As you wish." Fides had all the larvae and parasites of Chromis hide away, and the Hermit Order members also hid in a room. When Chen Zhao heard Kefui Base's voice on the phone, he knew that something had happened to her. She also told herself that she'd finished her painkillers. According to her calculations, the painkillers could last her until she recovered. Chen Zhao drove to Kefui Base's house. He could already smell the thick smell of gunpowder and blood. Of course, there was another smell apart from the gunpowder and blood. Chen Zhao wasn't unfamiliar with this smell. It was the smell of corpses. Not fresh corpses, but ones that had been dead for a few days. Chen Zhao didn't know what had happened here. However, he still hoped that Kefui Base was still alive. After parking the car at the door, Chen Zhao walked straight into the house. Along the way, there were large amounts of bullet casings and guns, as well as some minced meat. For a moment, Chen Zhao couldn't tell what the minced meat was. Chen Zhao touched his nose. The smell here was really bad. When Chen Zhao walked in, he saw Kefui Base sitting on the ground. Oni was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed and his arms open, as if he was the owner of the place. "Ms. Base, I'm here," Chen Zhao said. Seeing that Chen Zhao had come alone, Kefui Base's face was filled with disappointment. You came alone?" "Yes, how many people do we need to treat her?" Kefui Base had completely given up. She'd hoped that Chen Zhao could understand her. Unexpectedly, Chen Zhao didn't think deeply at all. "Asian bastard. Did you not expect that we would meet under such circumstances?" Oni was still sitting firmly on his seat. Chen Zhao glanced at Oni and was about to help Kefui Base up. Oni charged forward and swung his fist at Chen Zhao. With a backhand slap, Oni fell to the ground. Chen Zhao helped Kefui Base up. He could feel her body trembling. Chapter 1356. "Fernandez! Mr. Fernandez! Come out now!" Oni yelled. Just then, Fernandez and the others walked out. Oni became even more arrogant when he saw Fides and the others. "Asian bastard, I want you to die a horrible death." Oni roared. "Chun! Run! Kefui Bus yelled. Narrowing his eyes, Chen Zhao looked at Fernandez and the others. "I think I've seen you guys before. Let me think. Where have I seen you before?" However, when Fernandez and the others saw Chen Zhao, their expressions all changed. They didn't expect that the person they'd been trying so hard to avoid would actually be here. It was Oni who took the initiative to call him over. "Mr. Fernandez, tell those monsters to bite off his limbs. Hurry!" Oni didn't notice the expression on Fernandez and the others' faces. Seeing that they weren't moving, Oni urged again. "Mr. Fernandez, hurry up." "Shut the fuck up." Fernandez roared. "Mr. Fernandez! You!" Oni didn't understand. They'd been having a good time just a moment ago. How come Fernandez was talking to him so viciously now? Fernandez only felt bitterness in his mouth. Sir. Looks like we've really met before. Chen Zhao couldn't remember where he'd seen Fernandez. He just felt that he looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where. I don't care where you're from. Don't you know that L.A. is my territory? Kefui Bus looked at Chen Zhao in surprise, then at the bitter expressions of Fernandez and the others. Suddenly, some hope rose in Kefui Bus' heart. We'll leave now. We promise you that we'll never step into L.A. again. Kefui Bus remembered what they'd talked about earlier. They didn't seem very willing to come to L.A. Was it because of Chen Zhao that they weren't willing to come? Chen Zhao helped Kefui Bus sit on the sofa. Did I allow you to leave? Chen Zhao asked calmly. Fernandez and the others, who'd wanted to leave, immediately stopped. Sir, we don't want to be your enemy. Please let us leave. We promise we'll never come back to L.A. again. You came to my territory and behaved atrociously. And now you want to leave without saying a word? Fides and the others were a little angry, but they restrained themselves. Your Excellency, I am the chairman of the Hermit Order. I am not afraid of you. Fides decided to show off his name. He hoped that the Hermit Cultivators Guild would be able to intimidate the other party. Hermit Order? Never heard of it, Chen Zhao said indifferently. Leave your head here, and do whatever you want. Leave his head behind and do as he pleases? If you don't give me a chance to live, then let's fight. Fides suddenly growled, and channeled his mana into the container in his arms. In an instant, Chromis Parasite that was hiding outside the villa rushed into the villa. Careful, Kefui Base exclaimed. She had always been tense, and what she cared about the most were the Chromis Parasites and the larvae. However, in the next instant, a blade appeared out of nowhere and exploded around the room. Countless blades appeared out of nowhere, instantly dismantling the entire villa. Be it the Chromis Parasites or the larvae, they were all pierced through in an instant. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even Fides and the others were shocked by this scene. What kind of magic was that blade that suddenly appeared? The 1,000 stone swords returned and gathered above everyone's heads. They were like the sword of Damocles, aimed at everyone's head. You said you want to fight me, Chen Zhao said indifferently. Come, who will start first? One of the hermit cultivators raised his head to look at the sky, then shouted, Allow me. The next instant, a stone sword fell from the sky and pierced through the person. Instant kill. Chen Zhao couldn't make 1,000 stone swords do different movements at the same time. However, controlling a single stone sword was like drinking water to him. The second one come. Your Excellency, are you going to kill us all? You should be prepared to behave atrociously in my territory. The North American Light Society was like this, and so are you. Fides suddenly took out a container and smashed it on the ground. In an instant, the main body of Chromis in the container suddenly swelled up, swelled up, swelled up. In the blink of an eye, the main body of Chromis turned into a huge octopus monster. Kefui Base screamed in fear. Let's go, Fides shouted. He wanted to use this chance to escape. A god of otherworldlings. However, this god of otherworldlings wasn't very strong. Go away. Chen Zhao punched the main body of Chromis. Whoosh! The main body of Chromis was instantly shattered by the terrifying power. Chen Zhao looked at the escaping Fides and the others. Darkness suddenly swept over. Kefui Base saw something wriggling in the darkness. It looked like liquid, but because it was night time, she could only see red lines rolling in the darkness. The screams stopped, and everything returned to silence. Okay, it's over, Chen Zhao said indifferently. At the same time, he lifted his hand, and the stone sword hanging in the sky disappeared. Kefui Base had experienced the ups and downs of her life tonight. Oni was the same. Just a little bit more, and he could reach the peak of his life. But in the end, he'd destroyed everything with his own hands. He'd never thought that he'd ruin everything with his own hands. Suddenly, Kefui Base hooked her arms around Chen Zhao's neck. She tiptoed and kissed him forcefully. However, Kefui Base seemed to know that Chen Zhao would refuse. She didn't get too greedy and stopped there. As for Oni beside her, she didn't care about his feelings at all. Chen Zhao wiped the corner of his mouth and glanced at Oni. Oni lowered his head. Even though he was burning with anger, he didn't dare to show it. What do you plan to do with him? Chen Zhao asked. Oni jerked his head up and looked at Kefui Base. His eyes were filled with pleading. I want him dead. I want him dead. Kefui Base repeated twice. One could imagine how much she hated Oni. Mr. Chen, don't kill me. I can give you half of the money. If you kill this woman, her property will be mine. We can split it equally. Oni made his last struggle. I hate you, Chen Zhao said indifferently. I won't work with someone I hate. Chen Zhao pointed at Oni with his right hand. Instantly, an electric arc shot out from his fingertip. Bang! Chapter 1357. Chen, thank you. Kefui Bus stared at Chen Zhao. It's late. I should go. Chen Zhao seemed to have forgotten about the forced kiss. Are you going to leave me alone in this place full of corpses? I can send you back to the city. Can you stay with me for one night? Sorry, no. Chen Zhao sent Kefui Bus back to the city. Kefui Bus and Chen Zhao didn't speak on the way. When they neared Kefui Bus's manor, Kefui Bus finally said, Do you dislike me? You Asians are very particular about chastity, right? I've been married before and I'm sick. You're thinking too much. First of all, we're not that close. Second, I don't think a man should have other relationships behind his pregnant girlfriend's back. Kefui Bus fell silent. She suddenly regretted it. Why didn't she get to know Chen Zhao earlier? This was a man who moved her. A man who made her feel safe. She even started to be jealous of the woman she'd never met. Perhaps Chen Zhao had everything that could make that woman jealous. But that woman had a man who was willing to be loyal to her. This was the only thing she lacked. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't think that Kefui Bus loved him. After all, he'd only met Kefui Bus 3 times in total. They hadn't even spent 10 hours together. The so-called love at first sight was a very illusory thing. At least, Chen Zhao didn't believe in love at first sight. Maybe it was because he'd given her hope when she was at her lowest. Or maybe it was just a sense of security. Plus, Chen Zhao didn't think that he had to have an affair. Fei Lai could satisfy all his physical and psychological needs. Chen Zhao didn't want to ruin their relationship and family because of a little impulse. Who are you? Kefui Bus couldn't help but want to know more about Chen Zhao, the man who'd given her a second life. A medical professor and a legal doctor from the UCLA branch, Chen Zhao said. What else? Spiritualist. Like just now. More or less. You rule Los Angeles? No, my job is more like that of a police officer. Of course, you can also treat me as a vigilante, just like what happened just now. I kill those people, including your husband, without going through a court trial. But most of the time, the enemies I face are not humans, and I have nothing to do with the ruler. The car suddenly stopped. We've reached your house. Kefui Base was still in the car. She didn't want to leave. Chun, if I need you again, will you appear? Yes. Kefui Base suddenly smiled brightly. Goodbye. Kefui Base's expression darkened after getting out of the car. She picked up the phone and dialed Mansari's number. Mr. Mansari, do you know what I went through tonight? Ms. Base, I don't know what you're talking about. What's wrong? Your people are all dead. And if I wasn't saved by a friend, I might have died too. What? My men are all dead? Where's Tommy? He's probably dead too. I was attacked by a group of monsters. I don't know where Oni found them. They seem to be controlled by an organization called the Hidden Cultivators. Mansari's expression changed. What kind of monsters are you talking about? Can you describe them to me? The Hidden Cultivators call them Climus. Larvae of Climus are like fat octopus tentacles. They will crawl into people's mouths and control them or corpses. Mansari felt like his scalp was going to explode. What kind of organization was that? What kind of monsters were they? Now, he only felt that being the head of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department was really difficult. It had only been a short while, but 2 of his trusted subordinates had already died. There were still dozens of other members. Just thinking about the compensation made Mansari's head hurt. Ms. Base, who's your friend? How did he save you? No comment, Kefui Base said coldly. Mansari was even more depressed. He thought that he could easily get the sponsorship, but it seemed like he could only watch it disappear. I won't miss a single cent. Kefwi Base suddenly said. Thank you, Ms. Base. You should call me Ms. Base now. If you have any requests in the future, you can come find me, Mansari said. Kefwi Base didn't have a good experience, but the result was satisfying. Was there anything more delightful than Oni's death? Why had she been so blind to have fallen for this man? Daily Moore also resumed her work today. However, she still couldn't get what happened that night out of her mind. It wasn't a supernatural incident. It had really happened. It had happened to him. Boss, are you better? Kermia saw Daily Moore enter the office and immediately came to greet her. Yes. How's the company doing these 2 days? We've recruited 2 new employees. They were recruited by the technical department's manager. Yes. Call the 2 newcomers in. Kermia led the 2 newcomers into Daily Moore's office. Daily Moore looked at the 2 newcomers. Kermia said, Introduce yourselves. Boss, I'm Nawat Singh. I graduated from Caltech. Boss, I'm Antifigos. Singh, are you a Roma? Daily Moore looked at Nawat Singh's dark red hair. The Roma were actually gypsies in the eyes of ordinary people. However, they considered the gypsies to be a form of discrimination and humiliation. So they called themselves the Roma. They were mainly distributed in Europe and North America. Most of them had abandoned their original identity and customs. Singh was a more common surname among the Roma. Yes, boss. I heard that all the Roma know divination. Is that true? Boss, that's just a rumor. In the eyes of the world, the Roma were the symbol of uncleanliness. They did all the dirty jobs. Every man was a thief, a pickpocket, a beggar, or a human trafficker. Every woman was a witch or a prostitute. This was mainly because the Roma were mainly nomadic families in the early days. It's fine, Daily Moore said. I just want to get to know you. Then go back to work. Nawat Singh glanced at Dahlia before turning to leave the office. Kermia, find me Nawat Singh's file. Chapter 1358. Nawat Singh was born in a very ordinary family. She was currently single, 28 years old, graduated from California Polytechnic State University. She had 5 years of work experience. However, Daily Moore noticed that Nawat Singh quit her previous job because she was sexually harassed by her superior. Coincidentally, Daily Moore knew Nawat Singh's previous company. Hey Powell, how are you doing? Daily Moore, why are you calling me? A workaholic like you actually called me? What's up? I just saw the newspaper saying that one of the executives in your company harassed his employees. Let's not talk about this anymore. I'm so angry. That idiot is an unreasonable bastard. He's totally tarnishing my company's reputation and seriously affecting it. Anyway, your company isn't a public company, and your company's business is stable. After the incident, that person jumped off the building where my company is located. I even paid a hefty sum of compensation. Jumped off the building? Is that necessary? That's why I said he's an idiot. Come out for a meal when you're free. After some pleasantries, Daily Moore hung up the phone. In the afternoon, Daily Moore saw Nawat Singh eating lunch alone in the dining room. Daily Moore took her lunch and sat beside Nawat Singh. Hi Singh. I guess I can call you that. Nawat Singh raised her head and looked at Daily Moore in surprise. Boss? Alone? I don't know anyone in the company, Nawat Singh said. Are you used to the company? It's all right. If you encounter any harassment in the company, you can tell me immediately. Nawat Singh looked at Daily Moore in surprise. She heard that her boss had always been rude and overbearing. If there was a conflict between the employees in the company, she would never care who was right or wrong. She would punish everyone. Boss, you know what happened to me in the other companies? Yeah, I know. It's not a secret. Daily Moore nodded. Nawat Singh kept quiet and lowered her head to eat her lunch. When did you experience life and death? 10. As soon as the words left his mouth, he suddenly reacted. Before he could even swallow the food in his mouth, he gaped at Delamore. Boss you. Dahlia laughed. As expected, she had managed to find out her true colors just by probing her. In the spiritual world, Nawat Singh was much more experienced than a newbie like Delamore. But in terms of tactics, even 10 Nawat Singh couldn't beat Dahlia Moore. Boss, are you a spiritualist too? To be more precise, I'm a newcomer, Dahlia said. Just the day before yesterday, I went through a near-death ordeal. First night? The second night? Or the third night? First night, Dahlia said. I hope someone can teach me a few things. Boss, since you can safely pass the life tribulation, there must be someone protecting you, right? You can ask the person who is protecting you directly. I don't know her very well. She was entrusted by someone to protect me, Dahlia said. After the first night she left. Is there only one person protecting you? Yes. Is there a problem? That person should be very powerful, right? Navat Singh said. Yes, she should be very powerful. Usually, there's a certain degree of danger in protecting someone who has awakened their magic during the life tribulation. It's a high-intensity and long battle. For example, when I was going through the life tribulation, my teacher and 2 friends protected me together. Is it very dangerous? I feel like the person protecting me didn't seem to be too tired. She said that if it's the second night, she might feel tired. The second night? Impossible. The second night is 100 times more dangerous than the first night, Navat Singh said. Many years ago, among us Roma, there was a witch who awakened her magic power on the second night. At that time, there were more than 20 powerful witches protecting her, but in the end they all failed. Apart from that witch who was not spared, the 20 witches protecting her were also implicated. In the end, only 3 witches survived. Fortunately, I didn't awaken on the second night, Dahlia said with relief. 2 years ago, there were signs of a third night awakening in Los Angeles. That night, I saw a terrifying wave of evil spirits. It was a disaster. Is the witch who awakened on the third night dead? Probably dead. It's impossible to survive that kind of disaster. Right, the person protecting me said that we're not the same kind. What does that mean? It should be because you're a magic awakened, and she's a blood awakened, Navat Singh said. A blood awakened has a special bloodline. Then who's powerful? There's no conclusion. It depends on whose magic is stronger, Navat Singh said. In the legends of the Roma, there are 3 magic awakened and 2 bloodline awakened among the 5 pillar kings, said Navak Shingas. What's a pillar king? Dahlia asked curiously. This is related to the mythological system of the Roma. In the mythological system of the Roma, the god of creation was transformed into 5 orbs and scattered across the world. Then, 5 people found them one after another, and they finally transformed into the powerful pillar kings. These 5 pillar kings supported the sky, but in actual history, they were just 5 powerful spiritualists. Tell me about dangerous magic, Navat Singh said calmly. Navat said indifferently. In our community, some old Roma sell some handicrafts. Just ordinary handicrafts. Not all of them are handicrafts. Some of them are magic items. But I advise you not to accept anything from a Roma person. If a Roma person wants to give you something, even if it's just a piece of sheepskin or a coin, you'd better not accept it. Why? Some despicable Roma know how to use debt and return magic. It's very complicated, but once it's completed, you'll be out of luck. Plus, there aren't many Roma who know this magic. What happens if the magic is completed? Will it kill me? No. It's like a Roma taking out a coin. This coin is all he has. If you accept this coin, it's equivalent to taking away all his wealth. Then, you have to return all his wealth, which is all your wealth. Then if a Roma wants to use this magic on me and put the coin in my pocket, won't I lose everything? That's impossible because this is a trade magic, Navat Singh said. You can't force a trade spell. He may deceive you with tricks, but he can't force it on you. You have to accept it directly, said Nat Singh. Then what do I do? It's simple. Throw him a bill. No matter how much it is, even if you use Zimbabwe dollars. Why? Chapter 1359. Can you teach me magic? Dahlia finally revealed her true motive. Do you want to learn magic? Yes. There are 3 ways to learn magic, Navatsinger said. You join an organization, Navatsinger said. Another way is family inheritance. Another way is teacher-student inheritance. If you're willing to acknowledge me as your teacher, I can teach you magic. Yes, teacher, Daly said. In the company, I'm your employee, Navatsinger said. Outside the company, you're my student. No problem. Daly nodded. In that case, why don't we be friends? Whether in the company or outside, we don't need to address each other respectfully. That's good. At least it won't be awkward. Can you teach me a spell first? Daly asked. Let's go somewhere remote. You don't want to learn here, do you? They found a park. Navitsinger said. Witches of my system aren't good at fighting. Our strongest magic is exploration. Exploration? What's the use of this spell? For example, I can sense everyone's movements within 100 feet even with my eyes closed. Even a fly or a bug. Of course, if an enemy approaches, I can know in advance. Daly's eyes lit up. I want to learn this spell. You can't learn it yet. It's an advanced spell. I'll teach you the most basic spell, Danger Sense. Navat Cindy's paused and said, this magic can help you tell if someone is dangerous or not. Of course, what you perceive is not the real danger. For example, if you see a gun as dangerous, but if the muzzle is not aimed at you, you will not be in danger. What you perceive is whether someone can hurt you, not whether they will hurt you or not. I understand. Navitsinger began to explain the spell. After all, Daly had no foundation, so it was difficult for Navitsinger to teach her. After more than an hour, Daly only learned some basic knowledge. I have to go to work. No need. Teach me the spell first. Okay, you're the boss. Did you forget our agreement? Call me Daly Moore or Daly Moore. Okay, Limo. Navat Cindy's continued. You first need to be able to control your magic. After another 3 hours, Navat's and Cindy's pointed at a man in front of them. Do you see that man? Try to sense him. Dalamore tried to use her senses, which were not very practiced. I can feel that his face is a little green. Green means there's no threat. If the color turns red, then you have to be careful. The other party might be a threat to you. You must be mistaken. He's a man, so his stamina must be better than mine. How can I not feel threatened? There's no mistaking it. He has a serious illness, and he wants to jump into the sea from here. He wants to commit suicide. At that moment, the man tried to climb up the railing, but after trying a few times he failed. Dahlia was stunned for a moment. He was indeed weak. The railing next to them was less than 4 meters tall, but the man couldn't even climb over it. One had to know that even he could do it. Can perception spells be wrong? Perception magic is the only magic that won't make a mistake. No, there's another possibility. Only people who are much stronger than you can make a mistake. There are also some spiritualists who know how to hide their magic power, so your perception is useless against them. Dahlia tried to use magic on Navat Cindy's. She saw that there was a red mist on Navat Cindy's body. When can I learn new spells? Use perception spells on 1,000 people first. Practice? Yes. Navat Cindy's nodded. Your magic is still too weak. You can only learn new spells by continuously using it and letting it grow. Boom boom, Chen Zhao was being attacked by a missile. After so much practice, he'd used up most of the missiles. Chen Zhao felt that it was a pity. After all, he felt that his body had indeed improved a lot. But because he had limited firearms, he couldn't train like this endlessly. After finishing the explosive training, Chen Zhao left the river map. Denver called Chen Zhao. Mr. Chen, are you at home? I'm here. What's up? The first batch of beer is ready. I'll send some over. Come and try it, and see if you need to change the ratio. Okay, I'll wait for you at home. A while later, a small truck drove over. Denver had personally delivered the beer. Chen Zhao took out a bottle of beer and blew on it. The beer was gone. A refreshing taste rose from his stomach and was fed to his brain. The beer's unique bitterness disappeared after the alcohol rose. It was replaced by a faint sweetness. Is this brewed from Mirror Lake? Yes. Denver nodded. When brewing wheat beer, a small amount of water and fermented wheat had to be added. Chen Zhao was very satisfied with the taste. It's better than I imagined. What do you think? I don't want to drink any other beer now. Denver was also in a good mood. After all, the taste of the beer determined their development plans. More. I'll bring some to my friends, Chen Zhao said. Then I'll bring 20 more cases. Is that enough? Denver asked. Yes. Chen Zhao nodded. After Denver left, Chen Zhao put away the first batch of beer. Fei Lai really liked beer. Because of her pregnancy, she hadn't had it in a long time. If they released their own beer now, she probably wouldn't be able to hold it in. Plus, Jerlin dared to put anything in her mouth. If the beer was placed in the open, Jerlin definitely wouldn't let it go. Chen Zhao didn't want his daughter to become a little drunkard. Fei Lai, I'm going out for a while. Seeing Chen Zhao put away the beer, Fei Lai knew what he was thinking. Leave 2 cans for me. Fei Lai. Chen Zhao looked at her. I haven't had beer in 7 months. Now that our own beer is out, can't I have a taste? Chapter 1360. Fei Lai was just craving for food. She also knew that she wouldn't drink too much now. It was enough for her to keep one for herself. Chen Zhao drove the truck out. On the way, someone asked, Stephen, are you home? Are you coming over? My brewery has already produced a test product. I'm looking for you to test it. Call Rasfa too. Perfect. I'll call Rasfa now. Rasfa arrived at Stephen's house before Chen Zhao. When Chen Zhao arrived, Stephen and Rasfa had already started drinking by themselves. Hearing the car, Rasfa ran out immediately. Chen, where's your beer? In the car. Carry it yourself. Fuck you, how old am I? You want me to carry beer? Chen Zhao carried 2 boxes of beer from the car. It's not hard for you to carry 1 box. If you can't even carry 1 box, go home. We're not going home until we're drunk. Rasfa had no choice but to carry a box of beer. Ever since he'd become 20 years younger, and Chen Zhao had taken care of him, he'd become much healthier. Even his personal health consultant couldn't believe that he was so healthy now. Stephen was barbecuing in the backyard. Before he even reached, he could already smell the thick aroma of meat. Fuck, I stole the meat that Stephen is barbecuing from my house. I'll go steal some from your house sometime, Rasfa said shamelessly. If you're not afraid of Princess biting you, just go. Chen Zhao tossed the beer on the ground. He picked up a piece of barbecued meat and stuffed it into his mouth. Don't eat too much, Stephen complained. I only have a few pieces of meat, and you ate so much in 1 bite. You took it from me, Chen Zhao said, widening his eyes. It's with me now, so it's mine. Stephen wasn't embarrassed at all. He spoke confidently and picked up a can of beer to drink. Yeah, delicious. Just a few boxes? That's enough? The 3 started drinking. As they ate, they didn't forget to insult each other. Stephen, how's the editing going? It's 70% done. I think it'll be done in another week, and it should be out in June, Stephen said. When's the earliest it can be released? Chen Zhao asked. A few more months of publicity, Stephen said. But I think it's better to wait for Thanksgiving or Christmas. No, the competition between these 2 festivals is too fierce, Rasfa said. Do you think I'm afraid of competition? Stephen said loudly. It was as if he was declaring his strength. It's better to be careful. There's no need to take risks, Rasfa said. After all, he did not know about the lucky gold coin. Also, if we choose to release it at these 2 times, our showtimes will definitely be reduced, Rasfa said. Ideally, it'll be released on the weekend before Labor Day. Labor Day was on the first Monday of September in the United States, and it was a legal holiday. It just so happened that the movie that was released on the first weekend could be extended by 1 day. After all, when a movie was released, there was a huge difference between the box office during the holidays and during the working days. But 3 months of publicity is too short, Stephen said. Since PLM is a distribution company, they should at least give enough publicity. Chen, what do you think? Stephen looked at Chen Zhao. He thought that Chen Zhao would support him. After all, Chen Zhao knew the inside story. I'm a layman, Chen Zhao said unconcerned. You guys can decide. Oh, I didn't see Fei Lai at your house last time, Stephen said. Did you lend it to someone else? It sunk. Chen Zhao grinned. I knew it. Second-hand yachts are unlucky, Stephen said. You shouldn't have bought a second-hand yacht. Chen Zhao touched his chin. He was a spiritualist, so he believed in such things. Luck was something that could not be seen or touched, but Black Ma and White Ma were experts in this field. It seemed that if he bought a yacht or plane in the future, he should not buy second-hand stuff. Fei Lai was a good buy, But it wasn't worth it if he used it for a long time. He used it for a year, and then it sunk into the sea. I plan to book a yacht too, Chen Zhao said. Seagate is a good company. It's cost-effective. I recommend that you consider them. Do you have Seagate's contact information? Yes. I'll give you their product manager's contact information, or I can ask them to contact you directly. Okay. It's good to buy a yacht. At least it's more stable, Rasfa said. The financial market is terrible this year. Wall Street's money is flowing into Hollywood like crazy. They're willing to shoot any movie. Won't they lose money if they shoot a movie? Chen Zhao asked. How can Wall Street's elites not know? Chen Zhao was not in the film industry, but he knew that Hollywood was the world's largest film production base. Only 5% of Hollywood movies could make a profit. The other 5% didn't lose money. The other 90% lost money. As long as it's done well, the movie won't lose money, Rasfa said. For those people, not losing money is a profit, but the channels are all controlled by the big six, so most of the money is flowing into them. As long as they see a good project, those Wall Street tycoons will rush over like crazy. I heard that too. Even James got a big project with a budget of $180 million, Stephen said. However, he didn't look too happy. Instead, he looked worried. James is too impatient. If he can calm down, he can take a mid-range project with a budget of tens of millions first. It'll be good whether it makes money or not. But it's too dangerous for him to take such a big production for his second movie. Didn't you remind him? Chen Zhao asked. How do I remind him? Tell him that you shouldn't take the project? With Stephen's status, it was indeed inconvenient for him to say it. Even if Stephen did, James might not appreciate it. Instead, he might think that Stephen was suppressing him or jealous of him. If James didn't suffer a huge setback, he probably wouldn't realize it himself. If it was a small or medium-sized project, it was easier to recoup. At least it could break even if it was done properly. But an investment of $180 million would require at least $500 million in the world to recoup the cost. If such a large investment failed, it would be a huge loss. Any company would suffer a huge loss, and the reputation of the director would also be greatly damaged. Rasfa's foundation was still too shallow. He only had one successful movie now. Chapter 1361. Don't they say that when the economy is bad, rich people will invest in industries? It's not that easy to invest in industries. Taking out tens of millions of dollars to invest in a beer factory is child's play for the rich on Wall Street. It won't solve their problem of having too much cash. Even if they invest in industries, they won't invest in something that hasn't been discovered yet. Hollywood is currently the most promising and proven profitable project. Of course, they'll focus on Hollywood. Of course, this is only the investment projects that we can see. There are some projects that we don't know about, or are illegal investments. Is blindly investing better than keeping the money in your hands? Chen Zhao still didn't understand. At least, Chen Zhao couldn't understand the logic behind it. The big shots on Wall Street definitely knew more than him. They might be crazy, but they weren't stupid. It was just like how Chen Zhao had invested in the beer factory, because he knew that he could make money. To Chen Zhao, their investment was ridiculous, but who knew their true intentions? Nevertheless, this was just a casual conversation at the table for the three. The three talked about their own things, eating and drinking. They'd finished half of the 3 cases of beer. Stephen and Rasfa were both drunk. They lay on the ground, covered in mud. Chen Zhao sat on the ground and continued drinking. Just then the sound of high heels came from outside. Daily Moore walked in with large strides. When she saw Chen Zhao, Stephen, and Rasfa on the ground, Daily Moore froze. Looking at the beer bottles on the ground, Daily Moore roughly knew why they were lying on the ground. However, it was understandable that Stephen and Rasfa were drunk, but they wouldn't drink to this extent with someone they weren't familiar with. Instinctively, Daily Moore cast a perception spell on Chen Zhao. Green gas. But Daily Moore thought of not Sinditha's words. Are you the Chen that Stephen mentioned? Daily Moore asked, trying to sound him out. Chen Zhao was quite sober. He'd drunk a dozen cans of beer. but it was like drinking a glass of water to him. What spell did you use on me? Chen Zhao felt the magical waves from Daily Moore. Daily Moore was surprised. How did you know? There's too much of a difference between our levels. How do you think I know? Perception magic, Dahlia said. Do you want a drink? Dahlia hesitated for a moment, then sat down on the chair beside her. Perception magic? That's a rare spell. Mr. Chen, I'm very sorry about what happened that day. I didn't know you knew Stephen. What did you sense from me? I didn't sense anything. Chen Zhao stood up and said, Tell your father and Rasva that I'm leaving. Daily Moore looked at Chen Zhao's back. Thank Gaia for me too. Chen Zhao didn't drive. Instead, he put the car away. It was a matter of principle to drink and not drive. He still had to send some beer to the headquarters. After the sky darkened, the temperature in Los Angeles dropped by a few degrees, and the night wind was a little cold. Because the United States was a country with a high crime rate, if a person walked alone at night, they would either be watched by criminals or the police. It was like the curfew in ancient times in China. If a person walked alone for no reason, they would most likely be arrested. Although the United States wouldn't arrest people for no reason, the police would definitely stop and question them if they saw them. When Chen Zhao returned home, it was already late at night. After washing up, he went to bed. He liked to place his palm on Fei Lai's belly. It was a wonderful process to feel the pulsation in it. Chen Zhao would always think about the process of giving birth to this little life. In almost 8 months, the little life had completed its basic development. However, there were still some that hadn't developed yet. Many premature babies were born with congenital diseases, and most of them were heart dysplasia. Feeling Chen Zhao's palm, Fei Lai turned her head to look at him. She kissed Chen Zhao deeply, and then went back to sleep. Chen Zhao also fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Chen Zhao heard footsteps. Jerlin had woken up again. When Jerlin first came to this house, she would wake up 3 or 4 times a night. Now, she would wake up in the middle of the night not because she was hungry or because she was startled. She was playing with little Nine. Recently, she liked playing with little Nine. Little Jerlin was like a thief. She got up sneakily and clumsily put on her swimsuit. Jerlin thought that she was very secretive. In reality, Chen Zhao had always been watching. Sometimes he would sit on the balcony and watch Jerlin play at night. Children's sleep schedule was very messy. They would sleep for a few hours during the day, and at night too. Humans work during the day and sleep at night was cultivated through years of habit. They weren't born to work during the day and rest at night. If someone was used to working at night and resting during the day, they might not be as healthy as others. Chen Zhao didn't bother to restrict Jerlin and Little Nine's relationship. Also because of Little Nine's size, he rarely came out during the day. Right now, Jerlin was sitting on one of Little Nine's heads. She used Little Nine's body as a slide and slid down the head. Then she rushed into the water. Then there was a burst of laughter. Not long after, the Cerberus and the others also arrived. The Cerberus and the dog had the same temperament. And dogs really like children. The 3 dogs were the same. Usually, when Chen Zhao scolded Jerlin, the 3 dogs would also roar at him. This came from their genes. It was their nature to protect. Of course, Chen Zhao never worried that they would hurt Jerlin. Only by truly interacting with them could one understand their gentleness. Just then, a flash of light came from the forest. It seemed to be a signal to the house. The only person who could get close to the villa without being attacked was the stupid vampire Murphy. As Chen Zhao's personal employee, Murphy had been patrolling the house dutifully every night. He was quite familiar with Chen Zhao's pets. Chen Zhao silently flew into the air and landed beside Murphy. What? Chen Zhao asked, looking at Murphy. Boss, I have something to tell you. Chapter 1362. Boss, I want a pay raise. Murphy had prepared this sentence for a long time. Today, he finally mustered the courage to say it. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes at Murphy. Do you know what you're saying? I. Murphy was scared of Chen Zhao, very scared. Moreover, he knew that it wasn't easy to find a job with a salary of $10,000 a month. An annual salary of $120,000 was a high-paying job anywhere. Am I not paying you enough? Chen Zhao's tone was sinister. Or did you forget that I went deep into the crypt demon lair to save you? Murphy was so scared by Chen Zhao's aura that he was about to cry. Boss, I don't want it anymore. I don't dare. Tell me, Chen Zhao said. Why do you suddenly want a pay raise? I have a girlfriend, Murphy said, lowering his head. Was that a reason? To Chen Zhao, it wasn't a reason at all. With $10,000 a month, it was enough for him to go out and play every day. And then, Chen Zhao still asked calmly. My expenses are a bit high, Murphy said. Chen Zhao frowned. He'd let Murphy go back then because the kid was too innocent. He looked like an adult. But because he'd been living in an isolated environment, he didn't have much contact with the outside world. This also caused him to be a bit unsociable and innocent. So, Chen Zhao was very curious about what kind of romance Murphy was playing. His $10,000 a month wasn't even enough for a relationship. Where do you usually go on dates? She's a Hollywood star, so we can't expose her. When we're free, we go out to play or book a restaurant so that reporters don't sneak in. Oh, you know that I know a famous director, Chen Zhao said. Tell me her name. Maybe I can introduce her to a role. But she said that I can't reveal her name, Murphy said, troubled. Chen Zhao took a deep breath. He was 80% sure that he believed his own judgment. The kid had been tricked. But could he say it directly? It was said that women in love would become stupid. In fact, this sentence was also applicable to men, especially for an innocent little man like Murphy. He wouldn't believe his own words. I'll consider your request, Chen Zhao said. Then do you agree or not? I said I'll consider it. Do you want me to make a decision now? Are you sure you want the answer now? Chen Zhao's tone turned cold. Murphy was really scared of Chen Zhao. He lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Chen Zhao's eyes. Only then did Chen Zhao return to the mansion, but he didn't plan on sleeping. Instead, he picked up the phone and dialed the number of Agnes, Murphy's beautiful young mother. Hey, I'm Chen Zhao. It's you? Why are you calling me at this time? Do you know that for a woman, adequate sleep can maintain long-term youth and beauty? You're a vampire, Chen Zhao said disapprovingly. You can just find a few people to drink blood from. Also, isn't nighttime your activity time? Tell me what's the matter, Agnes said with dissatisfaction. Your son just asked me for a raise. Oh, I didn't expect him to have such courage. Even Agnes, as his mother, could not stand Murphy's cowardice. Her tone was quite disdainful. Agnes did not really care about Murphy's salary. What she cared about was Murphy's growth. But I didn't agree, Chen Zhao said. Oh, Agnes said displeased. You called me just for this? No, Chen Zhao said. I suspect that he's been tricked. Agnes, who'd been nonchalant before, immediately lost her composure. What did you say? Who dares to trick the Dracula family? I don't know. I only got some information from Murphy, but it's not confirmed yet. Rather than being Chen Zhao's employee, Murphy was more like a junior. Chen Zhao helped Agnes watch over and educate Murphy. What Chen Zhao cared about was the Dracula family behind Murphy. Whether it was useful or not, it wasn't a bad thing. Then I'll have to trouble you to help me check it out. You're not coming? You're his mother. I'm not free, Agnes said. After communicating with Agnes, Chen Zhao reluctantly took over this troublesome matter. Originally, he was too lazy to ask. He just wanted to leave it to Murphy's mother. In the end, Agnes left it to him again. The next day, hello Mr. Chen, are you free today? Denver called Chen Zhao. What is it? Chen Zhao asked. The brewery is hiring a few managers. If it's convenient, come and interview with us. Denver's attitude was clear, giving Chen Zhao enough respect. By now, the brewery had pretty much recruited all the regular employees. They were all residents of Mountain Town. However, the managers couldn't recruit residents of Mountain Town. After all, Chen Zhao had a bit of a relationship with the town government. If even the managers were residents of Mountain Town, they might be controlled by others if there was a conflict of interest in the future. So, after discussing with Denver, Chen Zhao decided to expand the recruitment range. People from Mountain Town could also come for interviews, but only Chen Zhao and Denver could decide if they could become managers. Unless there were people in Mountain Town that the brewery couldn't live without, Chun Zhao and Denver wouldn't consider residents of Mountain Town. The only person who could be considered a manager was Bant, the production director. However, with Chun Zhao and Bant's relationship, Bant would definitely stand on his side if there was a conflict with the town government. This had nothing to do with benefits. It was purely because of Bant's personality. The brewery had already started production, but due to the lack of managers, Denver had to do many things himself. This wouldn't do, so before the beer was officially released, they had to find managers of all levels. Other than Denver and Chun Zhao, the only interviewee today was Bant. Denver had published it in the newspaper before, so there were quite a lot of people interviewing. From product managers to department heads, they had to hire everyone. More than 10 people were interviewed in the morning. 2 of them were decided on the spot. The rest had to be considered. The interviews continued in the afternoon. The first person who came in was a slightly chubby man in his 40s. However, the man didn't look very well dressed. His clothes were a bit old. Chun Zhao looked at the man. Why did he look so familiar? Where had he seen him before? When the man saw Chun Zhao, he froze for a moment. Then he lowered his head. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.